It starts with a simple question and ends in objective reality. Through our journey from there to here, we find one another and ourselves. And as the next 24 hours breaks free from our last, we gaze onward in reflection of the day.
Come to your own conclusions. Stay vigilant.
Welcome to the Daily Wrap-Up.
Saturday, August 1st, 2026. Thank you for joining me today. There's still some stuff going on in the background. For those that saw the last show, we're still dealing with some unknown technical stuff. So let me know in the chat if you're having trouble hearing me. Let me know if the videos aren't playing clearly. Because one of the most important parts for me in putting this stuff together, and the reason I take so much time to try to organize what I think fits together, is so you guys can actually, engage with the content, watch, the videos and the full picture of this, and then have the source material to go back and share. And I feel like if you're missing parts of this throughout the conversation, it makes that harder to do. So please let me know if there's issues going forward today, but there's plenty to talk about. So just a small opening in general. We're going to talk. Okay. Well, I'm seeing comments in the chat. Let me know if that's pertaining to right now or not, so I can wait to talk, but I feel like you guys can hear me. But just, we're dealing with some unknown stuff for those that are new to the show. It happens to us quite often. Take a look back through our work and you'll see that. At the moment now, I feel like it's local. I feel like it's the computer that I'm working on. And so trying to figure that out with the background with other things. But on that note, let's get into it today. A lot to talk about in general. I mean, from Spain and the migration discussion, from the ongoing Iran conversation, to some actually really interesting, even though they're wildly unimportant when it comes to what's going on in the world, interesting stories that pertain to Trump's dishonesty, like the reflecting pool. And what's weird is I would normally be the one to tell you how unimportant and he's not even worth wasting time on. But why it's relevant is to show you the brazen dishonesty of not just Trump, but it relates to Trump in particular right now, but of our government and the way they conduct themselves and have always been conducting themselves. It's just for whatever reason more poorly executed right now. But what just happened with that is just like borderline comically stupid. Like, it's insane that he can come out with all of these lies and then have the story come out where even his lawyer is saying, oh, well, it was the contractor, that monopoly guy that we all made fun of, that we all said, we'll go into that briefly, but just insane parts like that. But important today is what I think is the juxtaposition of the Iran war conversation, Israel's floundering agenda, Trump's floundering agenda around the Iran war, and I guess Israel as well, and then where this Morocco, Spain migration point fits into it. And I think you're all very aware of where this is going to go. Now, a lot of this stuff has already been discussed, but as I think my job is to kind of organize this stuff in a way that makes these things fit together, not necessarily breaking stories that are things that we're all talking about online. And this is not some individual lone, we have an entire group, entire community behind us. They're all the people in this chat, all the ones that you can see in there, the people that are here every week that are part of this family, that are constantly sending information, that are constantly, there's a huge community, and then everybody else involved as well. And then all the people that work in this platform and our joint, I guess our brother and sister platforms, if you will, the Derek Broses and Whitney Webbs. And, the point being is that there's a lot of work that goes into this, and none of us are out here pretending like we're the only ones talking about any of this. The reason I even bring this up and why it's on my mind is because, interestingly, there's been a lot of push right now from people trying to frame what we do as something other than it's not. And that's not new at all, but I've been seeing an uptick in it, and I just want you guys to be aware of that. People, for example, trying to make arguments that I'm somehow lost in the voting too. Like, seriously, somebody making an argument that I'm believing that voting can change how this ends up. Like, just take a second and laugh about that. That you all know how much I rail against the idea of voting in general. And we'll talk about it in a sense of, knowing that other people care about it. And I'm willing to consider their opinions, but you know what I think about it. I never shy away from saying that. And yet people who are trying to shout people away from our content are acting like I'm somehow falling into the voting paradigm, or, you fill in the blank. And there are people that are really trying to convince you that we're part of something dishonest, or, just question it. You should. You should question what I say, question my intentions. The point being, though, is if you look for yourself and you follow the track record and you look at the follow through, you'll recognize that, honestly, whatever the intention, that we're doing good work, but that my intention is exactly what I state. But Be aware of that, because as we go into the midterms and all these, and even with where we currently are, there's sort of a desperation around a lot of this. And there are going to be people that are desperately trying to convince you to look away from what we're all seeing right now. So let's jump into this with an opening clip here that I wanted you to see that I just thought was relevant to reposition. In fact, I should have probably played it to open there, but I wanted to get right into it today. But this clip is something that I've played variations of this more than once, but it's important to see this, the duplicity of politics, right? And that's left, that's right. In this case, it pertains to Trump and all the people that were, moments before telling you how bad he was because it suited their moment, their current interests, and who now, at least in some way or other, Lindsey Graham being one of them, who's no longer here, so as we believe, saying he was terrible and now saying he's great and saying how he's the best president we could possibly have. And all it really shows you is that they either lied then or they're lying now, and it means that they'll lie to you. Now, you guys all know this, but maybe those for those that are new or those that still somehow think there's some good in any of this, recognize these people will do whatever their masters tell them. Now, whether that's the gun lobby, Israel lobby, whether that's Peter Thiel, whatever it is, that's the problem. It is not you. It's not your interest and what you want and what Americans believe. And we all seem to know that. We just like to carve out certain categories and certain people and certain groups, saying that's the good one. Trump's the guy that's going to save it. Biden or Obama, they're going to bring us through. Well, we're here with Trump too. So let's play this clip to start, and you'll see clearly why this is important.
Bad candidate, and frankly, I think a really bad person.
The simple fact is, he's the best president of my lifetime.
And you know how you make America great again? Tell Donald Trump to go to hell.
To President Trump, you saved the world. God bless you.
And Donald is indicating the fear that keeps him up at night when he lashes out with anger. Donald, you're a sniveling coward.
What I like best about President Trump is his courage and fearlessness.
There is no way we are going to allow a con artist to take over the conservative movement, and Donald Trump is a con artist. Don't play games with this president.
Well, yeah, so this is going to be a problem today. I'm going to keep going regardless. I feel like the video's done. I can't tell. It's been jumping around the entire time. I hate that I even have to do this, and this is the whole point. This is what I have to go through every time because clearly there's nothing but problems for this platform. So I'm hearing that the video is playing. By the way, interestingly enough, Charlie's video from what the hell is happening from day before yesterday, the comments were randomly turned off, which I never do. And there's not even a way you accidentally bump that. It's like a whole thing. But the bottom line is I had to go turn it back on and all the comments showed back up. Now, apparently our video is going to the wrong link. Don't really know. So let me play one more thing and then I'll try to solve that really quickly and we'll get right back to it. It's like, and see, it's funny because this is the reason why this stuff doesn't ever, it doesn't even matter because there are people that will come across this and then just jump away because it feels, out of rhythm. It's just what's done to people like us every single day.
This starts, and it's really fascinating to go back. It starts in 1996 with Netanyahu, who wrote a book called Fighting Terrorism. And the thesis of the book is quite straightforward and very dangerous. He says, there's Hamas, there's Hezbollah, they oppose Israel. It's not good for us to fight them directly. That won't work. What we need to do is topple the governments that back them. So what we need is regime change throughout the Middle East. And he actually gave a long list of 7 countries that included Syria, Libya, Iraq, Iran, Somalia, Sudan, and Lebanon. And systematically, the United States has done Netanyahu's bidding for almost 30 years now, going to war with every one of them, except for the big one that Netanyahu so much longs for, which is the war directly between the United States and Iran.
I frankly think that crisis initiation is really tough. And it's very hard for me to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran. which leads me to conclude that if, in fact, compromise is not coming, that the traditional way of America gets to war is what would be best for U.S. interests. Some people might think that Mr. Roosevelt wanted to get us into World War II, as David mentioned. You may recall we had to wait for Pearl Harbor. Some people might think Mr. Wilson wanted to get us into World War I. You may recall he had to wait for the Lusitania episode. Some people might think that Mr. Johnson
I would really love to be able to show you what this looks like from back here. So just to catch up for those that don't even need to hear this, that's probably ruining the show by even getting into it. But the bottom line is right now, if you're trying to watch on YouTube, apparently YouTube jammed it into an old video we did. I don't even know how it's possible. So right now it's playing through the stream that was playing Charlie's video from 2 days ago. So I guess that's deleting Charlie's video. I don't know, but not like it even matters to watch from YouTube, but just for those that try to, that's the reality. So let's get into the show. I'll do my best. Now, this frustrates me enough to, derail it. But the bottom line is it's very difficult to do a show when this kind of stuff is happening. So let's just put it behind us. The point was to start with this, to ultimately show you the reality of how duplicitous politics is. And ultimately it is everywhere, all the time. Right. And anybody trying to be honest about this and give you the reality of this is usually pushed to the side. And that's in politics too, by the way. Now, and by the way, please immediately, as best you can, or even text me directly. If you guys aren't hearing me, please let me know as fast as you can, or the rest of you, so I can do my best to try to solve this, because I'm not going to go through all this if you can't hear me at all. So let me know what's going on. Now, let's jump right into a point I wanted to highlight before we get into everything else, that there was a really great conversation that we had. Basically, Corbett's been doing IMA panels, kind of / Solutions Watch. And we've been doing a lot of great panels, and there's more to come. By the way, we have other ones planning. Even that impersonation panel, we're probably going to come back to. That, if you didn't hear, Whitney had some satellite issues and she wasn't able to do it, so we kind of put a pin in it. But we had a good one around something that's not necessarily political, or it can be, but ultimately not even. It's just James Corbett wanted to talk about books that inspire us, and I just love that, because we're in such a constant state of chaos and all this stuff going on in the world. And so this is just a nice thing to talk about that sort of pulls away from it, enjoyable conversation. And so I brought up 2 books. One really was the main one, which was kind of the impetus for what one of the books anyway that got me into what I do, in a sense of traveling before I even started this, which was called Vagabonding. And it's about the idea of traveling on cheap, long-term travel, like in the spirit of travel, not with the destination, right? And it's a great kind of how-to guide. And I also go into a book that's more spiritual as well, but great conversation. I really hope you guys will check it out. We go over a lot of different books and different conversations, and it was a fun, kind of back and forth. Now, hey, funny enough, since we're live, let's just take a look and see what's happening here. So this is coincidentally the show I was going to highlight that we did, Charlie and I, What the Hell is Happening? We do it twice a month. So here is the actual show on Rumble, which I'm sure will still be playing. Yeah, that's normal. Let's take a look and see what the YouTube version is doing. Okay, so I don't even know how that's possible. So right now, What the Hell is Happening is playing the video, but everybody right now who's trying to watch on YouTube. So this is the one you guys are looking at right now, right, in the chat, and this is the one that it's not. Yeah, that's Charlie's interview. Sorry, I just have to look at this really quickly. Okay, so look, not that it even matters, because YouTube is so obviously. Oops. What people think, and that is your job. What the hell is happening? What the hell is happening? There, sorry. So ultimately, what's interesting to me is YouTube is so obviously manipulated, so obviously, censor happy. But explain this for me, right? So we're looking at this. This right now shows. Where was I? Here we go. Let's go back here. Oh, that's for this one right here. So this shows that I'm live on this What the Hell is Happening. But yet, here is the What the Hell is Happening show right there. And there's only one link for that. Anyway, I'm not just, for those that find that interesting, I think this shows an undeniable manipulation, right? I mean, this is YouTube I'm explaining to me how I would even do that. I think that's crazy. Again, not to waste time, because YouTube is pretty clearly manipulated, but interesting that it's such a seemingly, turning off comments, jamming together streams. You tell me, what did Charlie and I talk about that was that important? I mean, I do think it was a lot of important stuff. My question is, what do they find that important to do this, if that's what's actually happening? But make sure you check out our show, which is why I included this. And I wanted to point it out because we ultimately get into a couple of things I want to start with here. And this, we talked about ultimately Fauci, Netanyahu, and a couple of different points. And, I really enjoy talking with Charlie, by the way, because we have different perspectives on a lot of things, but we generally agree on the main problem. And so we always come to some really good perspectives. So check it out. We'll be having another one, I believe, on the 9th, the 10th, coming up next month. He'll be gone for a minute. So in this case, I wanted to start with this because I find this interesting, not just because of the alternative media manipulation going on right now, but we're living through something that is rapidly changing, and you have people who are trying to kind of fit themselves into it, like the old model trying to work themselves into the new. That's how I would look at this, right? And so what I'm seeing here, Tucker Carlson, now what's funny is, this is one thing that was bringing to mind from before, when I'm commenting on this, first of all, what he says in this clip is very clearly supportive of J.D. Vance, both of them. And Tucker Carlson has repeatedly supported J.D. Vance. Now, has he come out and say, I endorse him for president? Nowhere did I claim that, like somebody is trying to insinuate below. But ultimately, the point was simply that what did I tell you was that both of these people support Vance in general, not necessarily for president, but I do believe that's where this goes. And that's what the people framing it say that. And it is not exactly what he said. This is what he says, though. I always like J.D. Vance, think he's very smart. The point is that J.D. Vance is a cutout of exactly what we're talking about. If you don't like what Trump is doing, the idea that you can pretend that Vance is somehow is just either the dumbest thing you could ever say or dishonest, because Vance has supported all of it. In fact, that's why I played that clip where Vance is going, he's such an idiot, and he doesn't know, and then ultimately he's the best president of my lifetime. So wait a minute, if Vance is the opposite, why is he saying Trump is the best president? So all I want to highlight here as I play this is that both Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones are playing into the same two-party system. Now, maybe they don't see that. Maybe they finally see beyond the Trump's idea and the current administration, but they're falling back in. I don't think it's honest. I don't see how anybody can honestly see what we just went through, or even the administration before that, or all three of the last ones, and sit here and say anything like this. That's what I think is important. And of course, this person predicts Tucker Carlson 2030. I regret promoting and campaigning for Vance. He sure fooled me. He fooled me way more than Trump did. Right? I mean, well, if the idea was that somebody promising what they'll do is not what they end up doing, why would we then go, okay, here's the next guy who promises all the great things? Maybe we should look at the system, realize that it's full of people who will promise anything to get you to get people like this to convince their millions of audiences to go along with them, until they suddenly change tune way too late after people like us have been shouting them down. You get the point. Here's what they were saying recently.
He's great compared to Rubio.
Obviously, he's great compared to Rubio. Obviously, look, I'll support the best person. I always have liked J.D. Vance enormously. I think he's really smart. He's in an impossible situation. I think he's doing his best. I strongly disapprove of, obviously, as I've said 100 times, of this war and of what.
Oh, I love how Trump and others have been blaming Vance when he's volunteering to go stop it, when internally it's confirmed he tried to stop it just like you did. I love how the guy that was right, he's the bad guy now, and the war is his fault.
Oh, it's the people who tell the truth who are punished. It's the people who try to do.
Yuck. Makes me uncomfortable almost. Like, frankly, if I'm going to be I don't support Tucker Carlson, and I'd like to believe that he is going in the right direction. Like anyone, even Alex Jones, I'd like to hope that that's what's happening, even though I don't really believe that based on a lot of different things. That it feels to me like Tucker Carlson So, by the way, I was talking that whole time, and then right there at the end, it played part of the clip. So I don't even know what to think about that. Hopefully you guys heard the clip. Anyway, the point was that I get the sense is that Tucker Carlson is
plus motives, the right thing, who were punished.
Okay, are you guys not hearing that? Did you just hear that clip? Tell me in the chat if you're hearing that play, because if that'll help me right now. Like, if that's not something you just heard, then that tells me something very strange. Let me know in the chat if you can, if you just heard that clip continuing well after I was talking. In any case, it also just makes me worried you're not hearing or seeing these things, but okay, you did? That's so strange to me. Don't understand it. I'll try not to keep commenting on it, but I just it's hard to deal with. But the point is, Tucker Carlson, I get the sense, is, critical but supportive, but doesn't want to be like, yay, Vance, because he knows that's not what people want. So, Alex Jones is just the bull rush into the direction of whatever he thinks will be what people want. That's what I get from him. Just blind support. It's not honest. It's not genuine, in my opinion. And this is the guy who got you into supporting this person aggressively, along with all him and Luke Radowski popping champagne because they're crying. It's going to be the greatest thing. How is that even possible? I would have told you that was dumb in Obama's time frame, and I was barely even involved like I am now. And so my point is for him to drive it into Vance was the one who didn't want the war. What an embarrassingly stupid thing to say. Vance, who told us the entire time this was the right step, even if you want to pretend that he was just saying that to support Trump, he still supported Trump in the war. And the idea that he didn't support this war is a narrative that was created. It could be the case. How much you want to bet, though, even if it was, when the time comes, when he's in power, that he'll do the same thing because he's pushed and paid and directed by the same things. So all I want to highlight is these people, the whole point of I told you was that these people would double down in the midterms with the team every time. And now Alex Jones is doing this song and dance about being against Trump. And I'm telling you, when you really break it down, when you look at the outcome, you can turn against the idea of Trump, but he supports everything that Trump is doing and was and is. Now, I'm not saying that as like a policy list. I'm saying that this man will continue to go along with the team. The whole idea of saying that he's not, he literally just called Trump a globalist. Oh, you mean like I've been shouting down your throat for the last 2 years? Funny how you just discovered the thing that everyone can see. How does anybody take that honest? Now, at the very least, even if they mean it now, you have to let that reflect on who they are in the work and what they're saying. Why would you listen to what they have to say next? Take it at face value anyway, when you really shouldn't do that with anybody. It's up to you who you choose to digest. I think that's important. Next post in the same kind of thread, David Icke has the same idea and says they are walking you back into the cult political layer and cesspit from where Trump emerged. Remember that whole drain the swamp thing? Vance is the creation and protege of cult operative Peter Thiel. The same Peter Thiel and Palantir that Alex Jones convinced, tried to shout you down for thinking was important, told you it was a small thing that Democrats hated, and now weirdly just doesn't even talk about it anymore, at least as far as I can tell. Seems relevant. And it says, yep, keep the people believing that politics changes everything as the cult agenda unfolds, whatever the party, and they'll go on being misdirected into cul-de-sacs while the AI digital control system is built all around them. Pathetic beyond words. Remember how both these influencers told you to vote for Trump to unleash the golden age? How can we even take them seriously after something like that? Anybody, left and right, it's the same thing, guys. Now, you do not have an example of many of us saying, leaning into an ideological possibility. Like in the sense of like this person will bring to, like I will tell you, I like what they have to say. I like what they say they're going to do. How about we just wait and see if they actually accomplish it? And the idea that we lean into somebody promising anything seems like a childish idea to begin with. How about we just hope they do? This is where it comes into the idea of the voting process, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now. The idea that we even have an effect on the outcome. But here's what Tucker also said, and I just found this very relevant. Charlie and I touched on this. Tucker Carlson says people like Fauci and Bill Gates may never end up in prison, but they're already living in hell, right? Justice is real. It's already happening. They may not go to jail, but man, sure, are they unhappy? Well, that sure feels wrong to me. I don't like the idea that they can just walk away with their billions of dollars and go, man, I sure don't like how people dislike me. I'd like to see them in prison. Wouldn't that be the ultimate outcome for a journalist calling out criminal activity? From my perspective, it would be. But you tell me what you think of this statement.
None of them are. Justice is real. Wrongdoers are always punished, period. That's a fact of life, whether it's obvious at the time or not.
I disagree.
And that punishment begins immediately. And you can see it when you look at them. You can see it when you look at Bill Gates. Is Bill Gates winning? He's apparently beaten his venereal disease, so we learned about in the Epstein files, but is he winning? Is that a happy man?
Seems subjective. And
with a wife who loves him and kids who respect him? With deep personal friendships? No. And today we learn, without question, that Tony Fauci is in that same
Okay. Oops. Oh, I just bumped it. That's good anyway. So the bottom line is, well, I guess first to point out is that, well, winning and being happy are two very different things, right? So first of all, we should acknowledge that they are winning. The billionaires who have massive influence, by the way, including Fauci, despite the fact that, yeah, he clearly got run through the woodshed or whatever the saying is, he's still wealthy, independent, free, very influential in certain circles. Okay, what about people like Bill Gates? Let's talk about that. Is Bill Gates unhappy? Well, I mean, I don't know that. Neither is Tucker Carlson. The question is, do you think that he is actually being held accountable for what he does? That's the only real question here. Everything else is subjective. And so my point is, no, he's not. He's not being held accountable, and he's not. I mean, I wouldn't even argue that he's unhappy. Let me make the case here for you. Well, first of all, I thought it was interesting Charlie and I talked about this. One administration, Obama granted Bill Gates top secret clearance at the Energy Department. That's interesting. It was literally Q clearance. That's interesting. But by the way, as far as I could tell, that never went away. And you know why I think that's even more relevant is because he's very close to the Trump administration right now. Trump met with him to talk about global health programs, came away very excited about the vaccine conversation, and now they're clearly leaning in the direction of everything Bill Gates was actually excited about. Easy to look up, already covered it. Bill Gates had an intriguing 3-hour dinner with Trump. He said, I was frankly very impressed. That was January 2025. The one was earlier. This one was September 5th, 2025. Here's what Bill Gates and Satya Nadella told President Trump at the White House Tech Summit. My point is that Bill Gates has been invited into he's been invited in the White House, the Oval Office, into meetings. He's been involved. Is that what you do with a bad guy who's unhappy because he's struggling and being held accountable? I mean, how can you even look at Tucker with the straight face and tell me that how can you take it seriously that he would tell you that Bill Gates is struggling when Trump has welcomed him with open arms? Now, look, there's been some back and forth recently about him criticizing Trump's human rights. You know why? Let me show you why I think that is. This was, before I forgot I included this, another example before I get to what I was going to say about human rights, showing you that Trump's administration is more than just the meetings working with Bill Gates. Trump admin fast-tracks TerraPower nuclear permit. Now, it's been fast-tracked for the first of its kind nuclear power plant in, Kemmerer? How do you pronounce that? Kemmerer, which is raising a red flag for some. It says the Trump administration sees more nuclear power as part of the answer to America's energy independence. To help achieve that, President Trump signed executive orders, as usual, right? Because who cares about democracy we pretend exists, even though I don't think government should exist at all. But the bottom line is it is a Bill Gates-backed nuclear power plant, this brand new technology. So an executive order, special treatment, Gates-funded, so benefit. That seems pretty specific. Well, yeah, there's a lot of that. Bill Gates has been wildly benefiting through the Trump administration. Here, in Trump's assaults on immigrants, Bill Gates eyes big profits. And so this is where you overlap. So right now, what's funny to me is he's over here right now making arguments about Trump's human rights issues, even though he leaned in to the human rights issues where he could benefit from them. Bombshell report from the the University of Washington Center for Human Rights is condemning Bill Gates' large investment in a company carrying out Donald Trump's anti-immigration agenda. Signature Aviation, which plays a critical role servicing Trump's deportation of immigrants, a process littered with allegations of inhumane and racist treatment of deportees. Gates' investment in Signature appears to be worth well over $1 billion. We'll talk about the ICE overlap in the next show tomorrow. As the University of Washington report alleges, Gates' company is involved in, quote, facilitating the forced disappearances of our neighbors and transporting prisoners to a site where their disappearance and torture was a foreseeable outcome. It's almost like he's part of the team. These people. Bill Gates joins Blackstone in bid to buy British private jet services. That's Signature Aviation. So Blackstone, the good guys, right? Here's Fed Scoop. Microsoft to offer Copilot for free to some government customers. So another way, through Microsoft in 2025 and into today, Microsoft will offer a host of cloud services at a discounted price to the federal government, the General Services Administration announced. It comes on the heels of the GSA's deals with industry competitors like OpenAI, Anthropic, Google. Under the same agreement, Microsoft will offer its subscription service, Microsoft 365 Azure Cloud Services, one of the most compromised out of all of them. Because as you should know, Microsoft has become a hub for Israeli intelligence. Maybe that's why Bill Gates has been let in the front door, or however you want to look at it. Either way, all these things have happened in the second administration. To me, that doesn't sound at all like Bill Gates is struggling. He's unhappy, he wants you to believe. He's unhappy and his friends don't like him, but he's a billionaire and he's got lots of freedom and influence and he's literally tied to the top of the power structure in the United States. But yes, Tucker says he's unhappy. Probably. None of them seem happy to me, but is that what we're talking about? How about we want him in prison for killing people with COVID shots or whatever the argument is? Whatever Trump and his team were banding about when people supported him. Luke Radowski says, if Trump is never going to arrest Fauci, can we at least get some charges on Bill Gates? I'm tired of this, whatever you want to call this pretend engagement. What? Oh, Fauci's not going to. Yeah, Fauci. Why? The whole thing frustrates me. I'll let it speak for itself. Can we at least get some charges on Bill Gates? What are you talking about? You might as well make that about anything. Make that about, Bill Gates is literally buddied up with him at this point, profiting from this. To me, this is fake content because it's not going to do anything. And all it is making people think that we're going after Bill Gates and Fauci and crush at the same time, undermining that Trump is on our side. Well, way late to the party. Literally everybody knows that. I've been telling you since January that everyone is turned on him. But now that it's become undeniable, you got who, by the way, I might be interviewing tomorrow. It was possibly going to happen today, and we had a little bit of timing issue. He had a great, I'm waiting for him to send me his new clip. I should have looked for it today, actually. He was in front of Schumer at a C-SPAN, it was on C-SPAN, but it was at an event where Schumer was listing off all of the Trump human rights problems and genocide, which I agree with, but the point is Schumer is equally a part of that, and Sam Husseini stands up and just lets him have it. And literally says, I don't know how you show your genocidal face in public. That's what Sam said right to Sam Husseini Sam said right to Schumer from the front row, right next to him. And basically said, you were put on notice for what you were doing and funding the genocide. And you guys just carried on like nothing happened. And I appreciate that because it's not about left and right. Now, Sam, it looks but the same thing with, the idea of principles and actions. I support Sam, and I believe in what he is doing, and I believe in his good intentions. But as I even texted him, I said, look, I'll always support you, brother, but I don't support the position. That's exactly what I told him. But I'm looking forward to interviewing about his engagement and what he plans to do going forward, because I think this could be important. Look, it's easy to see that certain people still have some level of reverence for the system. And of course, I could be wrong in what I believe is the reality of the system. So keep an open mind. But my point would be that people, it's the same thing we talk about, like a Massey situation. It's going to take a lot for me to even believe these people are genuine, but we should hope for that, right? That's the whole thing. But as he says in this post, and this has to do with what we were just talking about in regard to Bill Gates and really just the kind of new third-party thing that seems to be developing. And it's hard, right? Because like I said, shouldn't we want there to be some kind of new change? Now, the thing I want to start with on this point is that, my problem is that the system is completely broken. Not just needs to be repaired, broken, split in half, shattered into 55 pieces. That's what I think. So I could be wrong, but I honestly think, and I'll even add one more point. I think I shouldn't even say broken. The system has been shattered by design, and it is working the way they want it to. That's how I would look at it. So my problem is that having something for the system, whether it's a third-party group or even him running for Congress, I think that at the end of the day, the system is designed to make sure that it keeps going the way it is. But I could be wrong, right? And so what he highlights is some skepticism around this new kind of third-party gathering. Sam says, yeah, who could have guessed that Trump was a con man? Oh, this has gotten a lot of attention. Almost 2 million views. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene. She put out this picture of her, Tucker Carlson, Joe Kent, Massey, and I'm not sure who this is actually. Let me know in the chat if you know who that is, or the two. I think they probably might be together. I think that might be his wife. I'm not sure. Or maybe it's Joe. I'm not sure. But the main ones you can see in there are Tucker, Massey, and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Joe Kent. So she says, we said no more foreign wars, and we meant it, and supported Donald Trump because he made that promise. Like, really? Like, even that feels like almost embarrassingly naive, especially for somebody in the system. So I just don't even believe that she means that. Because are you really want to believe that Trump just promised to do? Like, when's the last time you ever really saw a politician follow through with their promises? Really ask yourself that. But he says, but he's betrayed us all. Well, I agree with that. She says, our commitment to America first is America first for all Americans, left, right, and center. The movement has begun. Okay, well, that sounds nice, right? But isn't that exactly what Trump was saying too before he got elected? It was. The unity party we were hearing, right? Well, so the question is, why would we choose to believe that they're honest when we just keep going through this? Now, that's not the same as saying ignore them or hope for the right thing. Don't blindly dive into it. Hold their feet to the fire. And at the earliest example that they're not standing true to their principles, yell to the sky about it. And then maybe still hope that that's how this has to go. Otherwise, we've already lost. So Sam says, yeah, who could have guessed that Trump was a con man? He's just the guy who did tons for Israel on his first term, talked about taking Syria's oil, excuse me, killed a major Iranian general, appointed freedom-hating Bushite Federalist society tools, excuse me, I have the hiccups all of a sudden, to the Supreme Court, etc. Neither you nor Massey moved to impeach Trump or Biden for their illegal wars. That has to mean something. He said you actually tried to impeach Biden for finally getting out of Afghanistan, which is pretty damn stupid when you think about it. There's no pro-peace party on the ballot. So, and he says, now the Green. So and I think what his argument is that ultimately that's what he might bring. I'm not sure. We could talk about it. But I mean, maybe they have a reason. Maybe they argue this why that wasn't going to happen and it wasn't possible. It just doesn't change the fact that we need to be extremely skeptical, because I've been waiting for that third-party shoe to drop for a long time. And I mean that in the sense of the false third-party psyop direction, knowing that we're so desperate for something different. And I thought that was already going to that was maybe we were kind of doing that with Trump and their rhinos, but it was still Republican, right? This, Elon Musk and his America party and all. I mean, who knows? I feel like that's what's going to be coming next. Who I believe has good intentions. And he says, can you imagine how powerful Thomas Massey in 2028 could be if a broad coalition, including people like Dave Smith, Tucker Carlson, Joe Kent, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Theo Vaughn, Glenn Greenwald, Megyn Kelly, Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian, Joe Rogan, and others united behind him? It's an interesting spread right there. Megyn Kelly, for example, is like, how was she even included in these groups? Like, of all, and I question, everybody, everything. But the idea of Megyn Kelly, of all of them, was she was such a tag-along out there going, Palestinians would rather kill their children than save a Jew, like horribly ridiculous things like that. And by the way, still says stuff like that, and somehow has like lined herself up with the ones pushing back against Trump, even though it seems very artificial. She just is a name with lots of reach, and I think that's why she's included. But Cenk Uygur, all this different stuff. It just feels this is not a coordinated, this group right here. I mean, I'm not going to, the point would be that all like an effort to try to argue that these people could bring to fruition something different. Maybe. I was going to make other comments about the kind of juxtaposition, but either way, we're talking about something, the system. That's my point about the system. So I don't care if you bring together the 10 best people on the planet, the system is designed to make sure that that doesn't change anything. That's what I believe. So either way, that's what I want you to think about is, even if all these people were the best of the best, is it even going to make a difference with a system that is designed to stay the way it is, regardless of who goes through it? So if I'm wrong, then maybe this will change everything. And I'll keep my hopes up for that and be questioning it, being skeptical, but also keep my eyes out for the fact that the system is meant to churn through stuff like this and make you think things are changing when all it really does is give a different type of power the center stage. Quickly here is the point this right now, that Israel has undeniable influence, if not control, over U.S. policy. Simple fact. It's almost insane that people can deny that today. I mean, you could even say, for example, that Britain has influence on U.S. policy, right? Of course they do, because they have levers they can pull, right? They've got connections. They've got money they can let. So it's insane that you would even push back on the idea that Israel has influence on the policy, but they do, which says everything. But you have to ask how far that goes. If they can influence policy against American interests, even against sitting president's interests, we really need to recognize what that shows us. Now, this photo is, again, an example of Netanyahu coming in the side door to one of the most secure locations in the United States, at the very least. Last time, as I said, don't forget, they tried to convince you that was a slight. I believe it was Bannon. I forget who was it. They tried to go, oh, they slighted him. Well, they have an interest in making you think that, don't they? It's not a slight. It's literal special access. As Wilkerson and plenty of others would tell you, he was told by his boss that Israel controls the Pentagon. That was years ago. Douglas McGregor has stated point blank he thinks Israel controls the military. John Kirikow has basically parroted similar things more than once. So we can decide for yourself, but I think it's important to recognize that there's something going on. You know that already. Netanyahu also says that if he were to be arrested while he was coming through the United States, that he has his special forces ready. It's just a crazy statement to think about, right? As Empire Live says, imagine Bibi the Butcher threatening to use his special forces on U.S. soil. Why do Americans put up with this insanity? That's Haaretz that covered this. So basically saying if anyone tries to arrest him, he's surrounded by his special forces that will act in violence to stop him from being arrested for something he did. So what he's saying is, the U.S. forces could try to come after me and we would shoot you because that speaks for itself. He is above all of it in his mind. You know, no different than in telling you that they can act anywhere in the world, that they can legislate anywhere in the world, that international law does not bind them, as they've said in front of the Knesset more than once that I've shown you, because that's how they feel. Now here is Laura Loomer, Carl Katarlson, which is such a stupid thing. It's such a lazy sidestep to get away from to focus on what it really is, Israel. And so they tried to make it sound like Qatar was influencing, but it was just, I guarantee every country to some degree is trying, but it was such it's the same thing I'll show you in a second, where Laura very clumsily tried to distract away from the obvious Israel connection to the Azov movement and the Nazis that are there. Right before October 7th, she acted like she broke this big story. It's artificial. So in the same case here, the Qatar part of it, which by the way is in a lot of ways used for Israel to do many of the things they do elsewhere. She says that Trump shared an article that says Tucker Carlson has a case of Jew derangement syndrome. Now look, first of all, how many times do I have to go over this? This is the same as saying you're not allowed to hate something. That's it. So in most cases, they're misrepresenting what people are saying. I have not once seen Tucker Carlson say anything derogatory about Jewish people. I've seen him talk about Palestine. I've seen him talk about Israel doing genocide. So we all know where this goes. It's obvious what he's doing. He's talking about the crimes, and Laura calls him a Jew hater because that's what the system is doing. That is the same woke mentality we're fighting anywhere else, left or right. So the point, though, is that saying you have a, Muslim derangement syndrome. Why isn't that a thing? The idea that you're out there racially screaming about how Muslims are bad. Well, it's exactly the same point. The point is that she has a right to hate and say what she wants. Crazy, right? So does anybody else. So all they're really doing is saying you're not allowed to think or say these things. That's very simple. Now, if you believe that, then express that and express that you believe in limited speech and not free speech. That may be what you really believe, and we can discuss that. The truth is, though, people like Laura pretend to believe in free speech, like Elon pretends to believe in free speech, and they use it. Everyone, she writes, in Tucker's orbit is an Islamic sympathizer and a massive Jew hater. Now, look, like I said, I'm not aligning in support with Tucker Carlson. Frankly, I don't really trust him. But at the end of the day, I don't believe he's an Islamic sympathizer. In fact, he's just barely shifted into the conversation of calling out Israel. So that's why they say that. But the truth of it is his entire work has been on the other side of that conversation. I don't believe it's honest. But either way, this is what they're trying to create. They're trying to already create this, which has been going on for months now, this new thing, right? She represents the old dying Israel influence, and Tucker Carlson's the new rising difference. Maybe it's real. I hope so, but I'm questioning it. She says there's no denying Trump thinks Tucker hates Jews anymore. It's just such a lazy argument. Like the fact that they can't pivot to something different than you hate Jews when that's not even remotely what anybody like us are saying. And you could always argue that may be the case, but then again, the point would be that you're allowed to think what you want, right, Laura? But that's not what we're saying. And I mean, I'm talking about most people they call that about. There's plenty of people out there that hate Jewish people. There's plenty of people that hate Muslims, hate Christians. It exists everywhere. But when you're saying, look at what Israel's doing in Gaza, you call people Jew haters, well, that's just lazy. And that's the whole point. But as Owen says, this is pure woke. No point in even calling it woke right anymore, as it's indistinguishable from the left. Well, my God, isn't this what anybody with a brain has been saying the whole time? Why is left right even a thing? It's about the idea of identity politics and censoring around hate speech. It's so simple. But the problem is that people on the right are like incapable of seeing themselves like that, and so they wouldn't want to hear it. I'm talking about team sport. Not even close to the majority, in my opinion. But he's right. Laura is woke, just like the worst of the left. It's the same point. It's how it executes. Now, Laura Loomer comes to censor RT. What a complete hypocrite. Like, and she's so like, it's not even shameless. I don't even think she recognizes it. I don't think she's smart enough to be able to see that she's being a hypocrite. And it's crazy that I actually mean that. And she says, with the Russian-Iran sanctions bill passing in the Senate, President Trump's explicit support for the bill, there's no good reason for Russian or Iranian state media to have access to accounts on American soil, other than the idea that we don't censor content, right? The lie that they love to push. The idea that we're supposed to be allowed to access and go and, travel to Iran if you want to see the funeral, do whatever you want. That's supposed to be freedom, Laura. The very thing you guys love to pretend you believe in. She says, if you're sanctioned, you aren't allowed to have an account. What are we talking about? Sanctioned? So the state got this is, it's technically a U.S. built thing, but it's an international platform. And you're literally saying that if they can decide who can and can't have accounts based on how they like what they're doing, she's an authoritarian. That shouldn't even be secret at this point. She says, today, Twitter banned Iran's news agency. Yeah, and she praises that. This is the free speech platform, the absolute free speech, which doesn't just apply to people in one border. It's just a lazy thing they're doing, but everyone sees it now. And David Icke says, amazing how people go on about freedom of speech until it suits them to demand censorship. Loomer, Musk, MAGA. Now, I argue, in my mind, that means people still supporting Trump who don't really believe in the original promises or even want to make the country great in any way, ultimately want to go along with whatever he says. That's not MAGA to me. MAGA are the people that are still wanting the things they thought would make the country great again and now see that Trump isn't delivering them. There's a very big difference there. But he goes, and the left, it's always the same. You are free to hear what I want you to believe, right? Pathetic, really. And she really is disgusting. And here is an example of the stupidity. Now realize this has been one of the central players in the fake MAGA side of the conversation. And she, I believe, is to get people to believe this is what most people on the right think. And they do not. I hope that's very clear at this point. But here's what she said in regard to, well, see, again, good example, not what she actually says. Too much free speech in America, in quotes, is not what she says. Shadow of Ezra is a partisan player in the game. Remember that. But they're very prominent. They play a lot of, they put out a lot of clips that people use. It's just content, like I've shared from anybody. But recognize that people like that are not always honest and manipulate content all the time. The point, though, is that she's talking about Ukraine and how she discovered that there's no Nazis here and discovered how it's illegal to even point to Nazi stuff as Nazis walk by with their Nazi regalia. She is an absolute clown. And she got ripped apart for this. This isn't even very recent. It was a week ago or more. I forget. The point, though, is about the idea of speech. These are the people that are telling you they believe in free speech. Thank you, Elon, for saving free speech. And it's not the majority of Americans. This is the system projecting what they want you to think everybody is like.
And just opening my eyes, getting on a plane for 12 hours and then taking a train for 15 hours and driving for 8 hours. I learned that anti-Semitism is illegal in Ukraine. Nazism is illegal
speech
in Ukraine. If you're caught with Third Reich or swastika or Nazi memorabilia or Nazi regalia, even for so-called historical purposes, you will go to jail. They give you a slap on the wrist one time, and they put you in a database so they know that you're an offender, and then they jail you and they arrest you. We don't even have that.
Right. I love how she puts it in quotes. For historical purposes. Right. Well, clearly there was going to be people that you could argue like hide their support for that ideology behind a historical thing. Sure. But there's also people who just have an interest in history. Either way, that's the point of why it's supposed to be, freedom. freedom of ideology, freedom of speech, all the things that people like this clown don't actually believe. They love to pretend they do because they know that's what you, real people, actually want. It's just wild to me. And as I said, this is the woman telling you Sharia law is being implemented in the United States. It's not. Now, like anything else, if you think it's an encroaching problem, be aware of it. Be on guard for it. But if you care to look and actually do your due diligence, there's not even a single and a single example where there's even something in the mix. It's like, it's such a, I mean, it's not only would it be unconstitutional, it's just actually not even happening right now. There's a lot of bills about stopping it. It is a complete, I mean, really, we should be on guard about anybody doing what we're talking about as an American or, whatever you care about. But if you have to stand back, if you can't see that Israel represents all the things you think you're fighting, and that's why they're pushing this before we even get into Spain and Morocco, this is what you're seeing in the world today. Israel is manufacturing these things everywhere it can. Now, whether that's Morocco and Spain, we'll get into. But you have to understand this. This is such an obvious ploy. They are scaring you with the threat of the Muslim and then literally jamming this down your throat. And now she's talking about the idea that we need to bring this to America and stop speech. You're not allowed to talk about Jews this way. When in reality, what she's even talking about is people saying free Palestine. And then on top of all of that, the stupidity of her even acting like there's no Nazis in Ukraine. The idea of that. And again, I'll include the show we did that proves the CIA's had a literal program, Operation Aerodynamic, since 1948 to build fascism in Ukraine. Like on the record, by the way, censored on YouTube, no big deal. Now, here's our conversation as well from 2022. Azov Battalion tied to the Charlottesville secret. I've been telling you for Charlottesville, the Rise Above movement is the U.S. arm of the Azov movement. It's literally on the record, and I've talked about this so many times. And that is where this all began. And the Azov movement is literally funded directly through Israel and the U.S. government. You can even talk about the idea that, talk about the no-Nazi regalia. Well, here's a weird article arming neo-Nazis in Ukraine as they talk about the Azov movement. Weird how that's marching through how they run the police department and run the, but it's illegal. This ridiculous clown wants you to believe. Just wild, isn't it? So the idea that they're trying to recreate the impression of what happens in Ukraine as this is all shifting in the direction towards more Israeli. And don't forget, by the way, Vanessa Beeley and I talked a long time ago about Israel seeing Ukraine as sort of like a last-ditch effort, like where they believe the real Zion is supposed to be. Like the idea that if they were eventually pushed out of Israel, that they would end up in Ukraine. And that's not a secret. There's been plenty of talk about that. But the point beyond the Nazi element of this is that these people are literally forcing in the very thing they tell you is coming with a different lens. Also, to know what's coming here or anywhere else like that is happening in Germany or plenty of other places, you have a guy protesting, holding a German flag in Germany. Of course, you have Zionists who get angry about this because the flag to them represents some aligned with Nazis during World War II that you can easily look up because they just don't know their history or don't care or secretly Nazis themselves. The bottom line is that this person gets forced to get rid of his flag as the police take him as he's holding a German flag. Welcome to what's coming to this country where you're waving an American flag and salute to you because of, or whatever you think comes to pass. The idea that you can be in your country waving your own flag and think that somehow that's, it means you don't have your country anymore, guys. I don't know how else you would even see that. Now, on the idea of free speech, Charlie and I also talked about this. I wanted to play this again because it's just crazy to me how obvious this has always been. Same point for Tucker and Alex and all the rest, acting like we're discovering this. Did he lie to us? It's always been right in your face. And so you need to start questioning why they didn't see it, or the same way those people right there were calling out people during COVID for not, how can they not see it? Well, there's usually a choice involved there. In this case, this is from 9 months ago. The White House account. This is where he invited Nick Sorter and Posobiec, and they came in the room, and he talked about how Antifa was throwing rocks at him and blah, blah, blah. Well, what does he say? Well, we had to remove free speech because, they were doing bad things. The idea that he can even say that publicly, and that's not enough to convince people that he is anti-American, right? However you frame that, it just shows you that there is a construct, an illusion that's been keeping people in this mindset. Like the this is the team sport politics, mainstream alternative media that is lying to people. I think they've lost their illusion, frankly. Let's play this really quickly. It might cut out for me, but I'm going to get it right to the right spot here.
People from the Middle East, Arab people, and other
You remember
people.
This setting. Come on, sorry, it's giving me trouble with the slider here. That should be good right there. There, I'll just let it go from there.
Days ago, Nick Sortor was assaulted in Portland by a flag-burning mob, and we've made it 1 year penalty for inciting riots. We took the freedom of speech away because that's been through the courts, and the court said you have freedom of speech. But what has happened is when they burn a flag, it agitates and irritates crowds. I've never seen anything like it on both sides. And
oh, right. Okay. So bottom line is, despite the fact the Supreme Court has routinely ruled that burning a flag is constitutional, it's literally, I mean, Ron Paul is talking about, and remember when they tried to pretend that it wasn't about the flag, but it was about the burning in bad places? Like, they're just liars, guys. And at the end of the day, he comes out and goes, yeah, it's the flag, and they burn the flag, and it's illegal. What do you mean the courts rule? The courts did not rule that your freedom of speech doesn't exist because a flag caused people to get angry. He either doesn't understand what these things mean by unalienable rights, or he doesn't care. It's just as simple as that. And this was a year ago, 9 months ago. But I just don't know why. I mean, or rather, two things. Those that don't, I can't believe they can't see it by now. And also why everyone is beginning to see it. It's always been there. So reflect on those who pretend that they discovered it somehow. Here he is doing the same thing about shutting down the internet and how you're wrong for thinking that's unconstitutional, even though it is, or how, again, the flag, where he was bringing it up to begin with, how it's those are stupid people. He's calling you stupid for knowing that he's wrong.
Do something. We have to go see Bill Gates and a lot of different people that really understand what's happening. We have to talk to them, maybe in certain areas, closing that internet up in some way. Somebody will say, oh, freedom of speech, freedom of speech. These are foolish people.
Oh,
a
really?
lot of foolish people.
And I think you should get a 1 year jail sentence if you do anything to desecrate the American flag. Now, people will say, oh,
oh, well, I think it's done. Frustrating. I hope that finished. I mean, I didn't hear the end part of it, but it'll probably start playing right now as we're finishing. But it's always been so crazy to me, you know, so the insulting thing to say that anybody who knows the right answer is stupid. It's a social, you know, it's a social engineering tactic, if you will. If it was deliberate, who knows? Because plenty of people will fall in line, you know, and I'll include this along with the thread that it's at the end of, by the way, where I went through this in 2024, showing you all the clips where Trump's recent campaign trail was littered with Israeli flags and was meted, you know, Miriam Adelson was popping up every which one, and, you know, and talks literally about how Israel used to control Congress, and that he says it will again when he's president. Literally. I've shared this 1,000 times. It's I don't understand. I mean, it's because it's not real. This is the first time in my experience that the illusion is broken down in real time. I don't think anybody supports it. Time to do something about that. Now here's Netanyahu meeting with the leaders of Washington, D.C., AIPAC, literally with his wife. It's just the craziest thing in the world. Of course, you know, military included, right? It's just no big deal. It's very real. Now, on top of that, now there was allegations of Miriam Adelson being involved, which I wanted to make sure that it appears that she was there. The image that's going around, I wasn't sure is ultimately actually, it was more symbolic or not, because there was I found that, not even get into it, but there was a double where there was an exact image that was same, but with Hegseth there. And both of them showed up as AI. Bottom line was Miriam Adelson was indeed there. July 28th, she was at Graham's funeral and then went with them. Like, she came along with this diplomatic mission to speak to Trump. Doesn't that scream insane? I mean, everything we're always talking about. And don't forget that Trump, as Haaretz told you in 2024, Trump is desperate for Miriam Adelson's cash. Her condition, West Bank annexation, which is currently ongoing. And here is what Rubio has to say. that ultimately that you're not allowed to criticize Israel, or we won't even let you try to come to the country. Of course, that doesn't apply to the U.S. government, or rather the U.S. as a country. Now, they'll say that. They'll say this public. You hate this country. You don't belong here. But there's only one rule that they're talking about here. And there's only one rule. If you come in saying, I hate Israel, they won't let you get a visa. If you come in saying, I hate America, that's not the rule. That's not the rule on the table. Now, I'm sure that individually, there are people that will push back. But think about how crazy it is to have a stated rule that you're not allowed to criticize Israel, even though it's free speech, but you can criticize the United States. Only one of those gets you pushed back from being entering. I mean, how do you not understand that? I think this video, you know what? I'm going to skip the clip only because I might have missed it and I don't want to have to reload and upload the video because it'll make this glitch out even more. The point is, he simply says exactly what that is. Oh, let me see if this is it. Yeah, I'm just going to push past it. Only because of what's going on with the show. Bottom line is I try to minimize how much I bring in and take down. So let's talk about Fauci briefly, hopefully. And this is important because it's what we told you would happen, what anybody who kind of has been following this long enough kind of expected. As Shannon Joy says, so it was all for nothing. The Fauci diaries dominated a week's worth of media coverage every time. A worthless Senate hearing full of bloviating, grandstanding. Yeah. Fifth Amendment, nothing happened. Well, guys, I mean, how did we not know this was coming? He's already been given a pardon. They've already let the statute of limitations run. Now, that's both sides. Now, of course, had he gone up there and put himself in, they could have used what he said, but guess what? He's not a stupid person. And on top of that, they probably did that together. The idea is that Fauci is right next to Trump. Whatever happened, Trump is culpable for. To me, that was obviously where it was going to go. I didn't know that for sure. And I simply said every time this happens, this is where we end up. The real question is, will people continue to fall for the games or the illusion? Or decide to strike a new path? Jump off the left-right political hamster wheel, guys, and you'll find that there are far more options than you've been trained to believe. Thing in that I have. Here is, of course, what you get from the partisanship, trying to defend and gaslight. Instead of clearing his name, Fauci pleads the fifth. Innocent people don't plead the fifth. Well, in many cases, yes. But of course, and down here, innocent people can and do invoke the Fifth Amendment to protect against self-incrimination. Oh, you know what's funny? Damn this thing. Oh, it's right here. I feel like the actual note used to say this too. But Trump pleaded the fifth more than 400 times in fraud deposition. Okay, so, is there consistency to this? You support Trump, you don't support that? Well, dishonesty. People are not honest when they play politics. The truth is that I think they're both guilty, and that's why they did that. But of course, you can be innocent and know that they want to take advantage of you, and that would be why you would claim the fifth. But here's what Trump had to say anyway, so it's irrelevant, guys. There's multiple things to get into here. Fauci and COVID-19, the auto pen conversation, Joe Biden in general. It's like the time when he said, oh, the Clintons, they're good people. Just ignore it. Just move on. And you didn't recognize then? How is that possible? So here he is going, oh, the Fauci thing in Biden's pen. We can't know for sure. We're just going to let it go.
Thing the president has, they say, is the power of pardon. So he was pardoned by Biden. And I respect that. I know how powerful it is. It's a very powerful. It's literally the most powerful thing a president has. Now, whether or not I sign my things directly, almost everything I sign directly. You're witness to many of them. He signed very few. The only thing I know that he signed was Hunter Biden's pardon, but I'm not sure that he signed. He probably didn't sign this one. So I can't tell you what the law is. I've heard that you have to have a lot of proof. You need to have letters. You need to have all sorts of things. That the person operating the auto pen has to know exactly what it's all about. He didn't know what it was about because I saw him testify. So maybe there's.
So the bottom line is what he means is that, so Biden was clearly senile. So that way we know. How do you know that? You don't know that. If they knew that, he would be in jail. Right? The idea that if you're claiming that somebody else did this.
Something on the auto pen other
Son of a gun. The only thing they're actually ever saying, guys, is that ultimately, because we know he's senile, that he wasn't capable of making that decision. Guys, you could look at Biden right now in interviews talking. I also believe he is senile, but it doesn't mean he's not capable of stringing that together. Sorry about that. I guess we just, our work is just too important. They think the system needs to stop us from. Anyway, the point is, guys, that it was always an illusion. It was always to get you thinking something's coming, right? Lock her up, whatever it is. Trump has used an auto pen. It's something that the Supreme Court has ruled they're allowed to do. The bottom line is, the question is whether Biden was doing it of his own volition or somebody else was doing it for him. They've never been able to prove that. I went through it in the beginning, and they just carried on screaming it because they follow along. And now he does this? That's insulting for 15 different reasons, because I thought this was supposed to be a big deal. I thought the auto pen was supposed to be, well, now it's all just ignored. We can't prove it. So, papers and stuff and words and the things and documents. And, I don't think he even knows half the stuff he's talking about. It's wild. How can anybody honest stand by this administration, this man, or this government in general? Real question. Of course, Fauci's ideas were crazy. And Fauci tried to protect China and over COVID. And it's just, as Doom says, you made him a king. You were not going to rewrite history. This game where he tries to pretend that Fauci was not in line with him. Guys, he was praising him the entire time. As you know, for a few obvious examples, he also gave him a presidential commendation. So how would you end with that if you think he was deceiving you? This guy is just dishonest as Biden or Obama. He's just bad at hiding it, as delivering it. I don't know how else to explain it. I guess I'd put it this way. His hubris and his overconfidence allows him to think that this is flying by with nobody the wiser. It's just embarrassingly clear. You think of it, you frame it how you'd like. Now, this one, he comes out on the 29th and says, many more people died of COVID under Biden than under Trump. Okay, so now we're pretending it's COVID again, right? Operation Warp Speed, he says, was a spectacular success in all capital. In fact, many say it was one of the most successful things ever done by an American president. I overrode Fauci on this. You're literally saying that you overrode Fauci for the vaccine that people know killed everybody. I mean, these are the kind of things that make you think that Trump isn't even actually tapped in. It's not some 4D chess secret game of trolling and memes, that his guy has no idea what's going on. I mean, what are you talking about? So right now, anybody that supports him is going directly to Biden, and he comes out and goes, no, I did Operation Warp Speed. It was a success. Everyone knows that. They don't. They disagree. And that he overrode Fauci on that because his ideas were crazy. I am the one that did Operation. You think people support this? He made too many bad calls, like on masks. You mean like the ones that you wore repeatedly, Donald Trump, that you continue to support in regard to mandate? I mean, my God. That's just he wouldn't have had a COVID vaccine without me. Do I even need to play it? He just said the same thing on record, telling you that we wouldn't even have it without me, without Donald Trump.
Also got the vaccine. Would you recommend to our audience that they get the vaccine then?
I would recommend it, and I would recommend it to a lot of people that don't want to get it, and a lot of those people voted for me, frankly. But again, we have our freedoms, and we have to live by that, and I agree with that also. But it's a great vaccine, it's a safe vaccine, and it's something that works. And we've been working round the clock, and what I got the FDA to do, this would have happened. This would have happened in many, many. Is
it done? Looks like it. Well, we're going to assume it's done. Excuse me. I mean, it's still baffling to me every time. Every time. Starting with the Stargate program. Like just owning this repeatedly. How is this not obvious to anybody? How an entire crowd of people can be like, yay, Fauci, take him to prison, vaccines, bad. And then Trump goes, I did it all, and we're the business success. Like, how is that even possible? How does that even line up for anybody? It's just, this is a big illusion. That's the only way to look. It's the only way to understand this. On top of that, Mary Talley Bowden, MD, says, while we were all freaking out about Fauci and misdirected as such, the Senate Help Committee voted for Dr. I believe mRNA is safe and effective Schwartz to move forward. Same old, same old. Nothing actually changes. So on a couple of points in regard to Trump, and this is where we can touch on briefly, I think in this one, the idea of the pool and so on. I actually think with what we're at now that it seems clear that Trump, and this might even be like a reactive decision in the midst of this, that Trump is now going, I think Trump is representing the failure of the system to rationalize what comes next. And many of us considered that in 2016. That was the design of what he would play in all of this. And this is just my thought today with some of the realities of where he's at, because he's toxic right now. His own people don't support him anymore because he's failed in almost every single way, and even in immigration, guys. So Corey points out, and what I want to show you on this is that he's failing you still, but that it was not unique to any one left or right. This was, let's just say COVID forward, which is the best way to look at this. The graph from AP stunned me into silence, they say. Grocery shopping putting a strain on family budgets. The price of food purchased for home rose 33% from 2019 to 2026. Look at this line. You had a small dip from 2020 to 2021, and then explosion. Right? From Biden to Trump. Realistically, even Trump to Biden to Trump, but not as much, but it's just an increase. And so the point is that this has been a consistent left and all of U.S. government degradation of your, increasing your prices. It says the craziest thing about this chart is that the price hike all goes back to when food producers realized, this is her framing of it, and I agree with this, at least to some degree, they realized they could use COVID to artificially inflate prices and people would just keep paying because they have to eat. And then nobody ever stopped them and held them accountable. Same thing happened with tariffs, where they raised their prices to meet that issue, but then they realized, well, people are just going to keep paying it. And they also got refunds, by the way. So they made money back and the prices stayed up. And it's just a design. Now, maybe Trump doesn't know that. Maybe I'm wrong, but we need to recognize that he is not saving you. He's an equal part of this problem. Just like Biden, just like Obama, just like Bush. Same thing. Apple received an estimated, think about this, guys. $2.2 billion in tariff refund. Like this is money that you basically paid. They already received money because they increased their prices due to the situation, then made refunds. And then Ludnick and the rest profited off their shorting. It's all in the record. And 1% of Americans say they're cutting back on groceries because they can't afford the rising cost of food. Meanwhile, money's changing hands in the elitist circles, as usual. You have this example of Musk pledging to help Trump in midterms with $1.6 billion government, or technically, no, $1 billion, generally speaking. That could be floated. But the point was that he's same time was getting a $1.6 billion contract. No, that's not unique for Elon Musk. He's got tons of contracts. So it really shouldn't even be about whether there's a new one. The guy investing in politics while he's a military contractor for that government, that's like the definition of a conflict of interest. The point is, though, guys, this is, I look at it one of two ways. This is either him buying into this to try to once again control the direction of this for all the same agendas, all the technocratic change, everything, or this is them trying to take back control of it. Either way, my point is that we are in a path right now that is not going in the direction of American interests. There's varying forces, trying to take control of where this goes, and none of them are fighting for you. That's how I would really see this. But this, how can we not? We can't fall for this again. We just can't. Now, in regard to money issues that are just hilarious and also show you the dishonesty of them, to a insanely petty degree. The idea that they would even lie. How long have I been saying this? They lie about things they don't even need to lie about, like the pool, for example. Now, I don't know whether Trump is being lied to or he's lying to you because he's in Paris. I don't know. But first, on the festival or whatever, what was it called? What they call it? The state fair. Great American State Fair, which, I don't even care about whether they had all the people they said they had. Every single video shot, everything I saw, everything showed basically nobody there. But that could have been propaganda for all I know. It's irrelevant. The point for me is that this was bread and circuses. It accomplished nothing, and it embarrassed us, quite frankly. And on top of that, you know how he told you it would be all funded, don't worry about it? Well, guess what? He lied. Trump is now asking for millions to cover the costs of this fair. Donald Trump's administration is asking Congress for $10 million to help cover the cost of the Freedom 250 celebration. The funding demand comes despite Republicans already allocating on top of this $150 million in last year's One Big Beautiful Bill for Interior Department events tied to that anniversary. So they already lied, and then they're asking for $10 million more. They told coming out of private money. Accused the administration of asking taxpayers to rescue a project that was supposed to rely partly on private funding. By and large, this would not come out of American taxpayer dollars. And it seems to be entirely, almost. Or at the very least, that you're spending money for something that nobody voted on, that we didn't agree. This was bread and circuses, guys. It was an insult. Like this. Like, this just blows my mind. Like, to me, you have to ask whether Trump even knew this was the case. Like, I get the sense that Trump, one of two things, that he actually was convinced that this was something that somebody did, or he somehow thought you would never find out. And it just shows you such a childlike nature. DOJ drops the reflecting pool vandalism case against the Olympian, and they cited flawed work by the contractor. So you could argue if they just dropped the case that maybe they just found that he didn't do it. But they literally have now turned and cited that they discovered that this was done by this guy. Or right here. Hold on. Where was that? Here. This is not a joke, by the way. Literally a guy I believe is his neighbor in Mar-a-Lago or something like that. It's a joke, guys. They're laughing at you. They gave this guy a contract who is a criminal from before and then did a poor job on the reflecting pool, probably made lots of money by selling it out. And then Trump turned around and said, lefty liberal terrorists did it. And they used that to lock down the area, to arrest people. I mean, there's so many implications of this, even though the story seems to be silly. It says the Justice Department moved to dismiss the criminal case against Olympian David Hearn, who was alleged to have vandalized the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool, acknowledging the damage of the pool was the result of flawed installation by the contractor. Direct quote from the Justice Department. Hearn pleaded not guilty to a felony destruction of property charge earlier this month, and I'm sure he spent money to fight this, after the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Jeanine Pirro, who is an absolute clown in my opinion, who did whatever Trump told her to do, and is very bombastic about whatever she's told to do, even though it's like this, turns out to be lies, accused him of allegedly, quote, forcefully and violently ripping up parts of the pool. Okay, explain this for me, Pirro. If you didn't know, and now the evidence shows it wasn't even in the first place, explain why you said it was forceful and violent. Because how could you possibly know that? Because they wanted you to think he was a left-wing violent terrorist. Because these are not honest people. And they're abusing American rights. They're abusing the justice system. They're abusing what you hold sacred to go after the people that they don't like. And in fact, people that didn't even do it. Just making it up to go after people so you think they're going after the left. Pirro's office said in a filing Friday seeking to drop the case that it only learned of evidence pointing to, quote, a rushed and flawed installation process after Hearn had been indicted by a grand jury. Yet again, another example of why being indicted by a grand jury means nothing today. Because they can manipulate the process. All it means is an accusation. He ultimately was not guilty. That's just and of course, I know you guys know this, but when you're having to yell over the Nick Sorters and Benny Johnsons of the world, it's hard. People can get swayed by the idea that it sounds like it makes sense. The filing stated Pirro herself visited the reflecting pool on July 17th after it had been fully drained and became aware of significant damage throughout the pool area, which spurred the DOJ to request all documents from the U.S. Interior Department. Oh, wait, you didn't do that before? Wait, let me get this straight, lawyer. You just blindly took at face value what Trump claimed and then accused a man of a crime, indicted him, and then after the fact went to look to explain to me how you knew anything. See, this is the point, guys. They didn't. They just went with whatever they needed to go with to make the case in the moment, to distract, to manipulate, and they abused the whole thing. They hurt people. Those documents indicated a flawed installation by the contractor, Atlantic Industrial Coatings, with, quote, repeated failures of the lining during the installation process and extensive peeling of the lining throughout the reflecting pool, and a rush to complete the renovation project before the America 250 celebration on July 4th. I mean, how are you not just, if you're Donald Trump, just like shockingly embarrassed because you're a sociopath and you don't care? I mean, guys, you wouldn't go to that length of just repeatedly lying about this if you had any concern. I mean, or I guess, or unless you're just desperate, which maybe it's both. Because these recently produced materials significantly undermine the evidentiary basis for the indictment initially supplied by the DOI, maybe DOJ. What's the DOI? Is it the Interior? I think it is. Anyway, the bottom line is, where was I? So basically, because the recently produced materials significantly undermine the evidentiary basis for the indictment. Yeah, it's the Interior and U.S. Police, Park Police. The USAODC respectively moves to dismiss the indictment without prejudice. The court filing said, meaning the case could be brought again. How ridiculous. The filing includes an email sent on June 11th by the National Park Service engineer to the others in the Department of the Interior, correct, describing their concern that overspray of the new pool coating along the perimeter of the pool could lead to 1 to 2 foot strips that is vulnerable to peeling. At a news conference on July 2nd announcing Hearn's indictment, Pirro told reporters that, quote, the evidence shows, and we will prove beyond a reasonable doubt, that Hearn willfully destroyed property at the Lincoln Memorial. Oh, so you lied, Pirro. Also should be shamed into the corner right now. So the certainty is what her job is, but that you could be pushed to do like that when you're hurt, when you're potentially putting someone in prison. Imagine if they didn't get this evidence. Imagine if this person went to prison for 20 years for something he didn't do because Trump is a coward. Think about how insane that is. And the idea being that you willfully destroyed property beyond a reasonable doubt. Crazy. And she said the evidence showed that Hearn was observed, quote, forcefully and violently removing the liner. So she lied, guys. These people should be stripped of their credentials. The idea that you can make up a story like that and use your made up arguments to put this person in, to get an indictment, to put him in jail, only to turn out that you admit later that it was everything we all knew it was because we saw the videos of you. I mean, God darn it, man. That's just crazy. The filing from her office on Friday concluded, quote, given all this newly discovered information, you mean all the stuff that we were all yelling from day one? Because, it's not a secret. It is difficult to attribute the widespread damage to the reflecting pool to vandalism, let alone to establish that fact beyond a reasonable doubt. Maybe you should have looked into it barely before you screamed from the rooftops that you knew they were guilty, Pirro. The bottom line, newly discovered information, difficult to attribute. They're clearly leaving it open for some kind of abuse in the future. Just insane, isn't it? Even though it's a silly story, think about the level of petty dishonesty that goes along with something like this. And the profiteering and corruption of working with your corrupt Mar-a-Lago buddies to make money off the expense of Americans. Who do you think pays for what they're doing right now? Taxpayers. Here is Trump, this exact topic.
We have I think 290, 300 foot slit right through it, probably a box cutter or a knife of some kind.
Somebody went in with a knife and cut it. They cut it up good, and then they cut a 200, 350 foot slip.
So real quickly, see, this is what he does. So he speaks off the cuff and goes, I don't know, box cutter, maybe a knife, I don't know. And then goes outside and just repeats it, but now he knows, right? Because I heard it somewhere, a knife. It's a knife. A knife was what it was. A box cutter. So you just said that you don't, maybe a box cutter, it could be. And then from the rest of that day and on for the next week, he starts stating it as fact. And you know he's lying now, right? He made it up. So why can't people who actually, the 1% that still seems to support, how can we not see through him by now?
And then they cut a 200, 350 foot slip in the form of lots of little slips. Real horrible stuff. We caught some people vandalizing our beautiful reflecting pool. They tried to destroy it. They cut it up with a box knife and tried to destroy.
See how that works? I still find that so crazy. I think there's certain people that really need to see that. Come on. I don't know why this isn't coming up. There we go. Maybe it was up the whole time and I couldn't see it. I don't know. So continuing. Now, on this last part of this, there could be see later reports as of today. Trump Media has officially launched its new paid data service, providing faster access to true social posts from President Trump. A statement, by the way, that was put out that some people denied, as always, even though we knew it was true. And so now the bottom line is it's called Truth API. So now, because people have been abusing the inside information they get from the president, which is supposed to be a crime, polymarket the whole thing. Well, now Trump is going to, you can just pay me directly, right? $100,000 a month, and you get access to what I say about what's going on before anybody else. So then you could jump out and profit from your inside information. I mean, this is just blatant corruption. I guess nobody cares. And that's Sam's point about Congress. They love to stand there and yell about how they care, and then nobody does anything. Why is he not in jail? So, talking about the conversation of Spain and Morocco, definitely think it's relevant to consider the level of dishonesty coming out of this administration and the level of dishonesty that's been coming out of Israel since its inception. So this is important to think about, guys. Why would something like this be happening? Now, first of all, it's certainly possible that something is organic. Now, I think everything about this shows that's not the case. And what you should, by the way, before that first point, really, you should recognize that in anything, even if it's not organic, that there's always some level of real, people, like with Iran, for example. Well, there was real people that were protesting, but they then came in with masked, governments and created the conflict that they then pointed to as people that were protesters being shot. But it still started with real protesters, right? So in the same case here, there's going to be some level of issue here, like about the people in Morocco that believe that they are that believe that that's their territory, for example. Like that exists, right? Taking advantage of the same thing that they've done throughout their history, which is like what they did with Rwanda, for example, which is stoke the tensions between these two areas. I mean, you could pretty much look up most large genocides in our history and realize Israel played a role. It's not a secret. As much as people just hearing that will act like we're being racist. Actually, I do this every time. I guess on the anniversary of the side, I went over this because it was relevant that day and I dove into it, and I've covered this before. But as I went through it, because of what was happening with the genocide, I ended up finding all these connections to Israel that were on the record on Wikipedia, for crying out loud. And what you come to find out is that Israel was very much before, during, and after during the Rwandan genocide, giving arms and stoking the tensions. I mean, guys, this was literally on the record. And I'm thinking, how is this not public knowledge? Well, so much of what Israel does in his hiding is somehow not public knowledge. But so my point in saying that is that in this situation, what I believe is part of this is that you have a situation where multiple agendas are being added to. From Laura Loomer's perspective, see, this is what happens when Muslims are allowed to do what they want, just horrible things, right? And then, of course, on the other side of it, you have Israel arguing that they have this, where the kind of general standpoint would be that this is the same kind of thing they're dealing with. They have a right to their territory, right? They own the God gave us this territory. It's not Palestinian. And so it's the same kind of idea that if people start to rationalize why they should have a right to the other territory or why Spain shouldn't have it or how, there's conversations to be had. It opens the door to why Israel can pretend that what they're doing has always been the right thing. Those are all just kind of overarching points, even if this was organic. So let's start by reading through Reuters from yesterday. And I'll go over what I think is happening. I argue you people that watch this show, you've probably seen most of the points we're going to bring up because it's been pretty roundly discussed. But I think that just speaks to how simple this seems to be. Just kind of very, very straightforward, and how it's been clearly cultivated from both the U.S. government and Israel. And on top of that, that there's right now a deliberate misrepresentation of previous statements about the West Sahara that are not the current locations we're discussing. Marilla and Sirta? And so it's Ceuta. We'll talk about that right now. Or we'll first read this, then we'll get into it. Now, Spain says migrants are returning from Ceuta after 57 die in border rush. Spain said on Friday it had reversed a huge rush of migrants into Spanish enclave in North Africa, which most of more than 50,000 people who had crossed the border by land and sea already heading back voluntarily. Oh, by the way, as we'll show you, there's clear examples of them being stoked. And even the New York Times covered examples of people being told to do this. Now, what you're going to get from a lot of people is making it about like a left-wing Soros thing. Yeah, consider that. But see, if we're still stuck on the one-side party dynamic, you're so far behind in this conversation. The reality is it's not left doing it to right. This is a larger globalist agenda, which even Alex Jones seemed to be able to see in the Trump administration. Finally, though, is that this is bigger than just somehow one party doing this. You know, this is about orchestrating some kind of massive global rationalization for change. The new governance style, the new immigration control, the suppression of your rights, technocracy. The Spanish government's representatives in Ceuta, I believe is what it was, right? I looked it up. It's Ceuta, maybe. Ceuta. I think so. Trying to bring, I could look it up again, but it's fine. Said 57 bodies had been recovered on the Spanish side of the border, and that there could be the additional casualties on the Moroccan side. It said some drowned and some were crushed while trying to climb the breakwater that holds the border fence. The main picture we used today. So here's a good shot of it, right? So the real idea here is that this is Spain and that they argue this is Spanish territory, which that goes back to colonial times, right? I mean, it's the same idea. As Morocco, you can easily understand why they would say, well, that's not your territory. Right. But the problem is this brings into the conversation dishonest motives from people out there trying to abuse this. And the question is, was this just Moroccans deciding to go across the Strait of Gibraltar to, I doubt it, guys. It's not even, what would that even accomplish? You see, you have to think about self-interest. Really important today. It says, quote, honestly, I don't even know why I came. I'm going back. A young Moroccan man who said he was from Tangier. He said, I haven't eaten since lunch yesterday, and even though I brought some money with me, what we're doing is neither good nor enjoyable. Interesting statement. Remember, this is mainstream. Now, it says right-wing parties around the continent blamed the incident on Spain's comparatively lax migration policies, which certainly played a factor, but it seems very dishonest and disingenuous to make it about that when you have an orchestrated rush of people. Now, it says including an amnesty granted to hundreds of thousands of unauthorized migrants, this human trafficking. But again, it's not even secret. This has been clearly stoked. So none of these arguments ring true when if it's dishonestly stoked into reality, even if it's to make your case. Now, it says U.S. President Donald Trump, a longtime critic of Spain's socialist-led government, told a cabinet meeting that Ceuta, I'm just going to do it real quick. Hold on. That's going to drive me crazy. Here it is. Told the cabinet that meeting that Ceuta crossings look like an invasion. Seems weirdly close to what he was saying in this country, right? Adding, quote, that same thing's going to happen to us. Did he just build everything on the idea that it was happening? Seems funny because it wasn't. Remember that. He was lying about it. The same thing's going to happen to us if the Republicans don't get elected. You mean aside from the fact that you control every part of the government right now? So what do you mean? So now you mean that they get elected, they're going to just rush immigrants into the country? Guys, it just doesn't make any logical sense. The only people that believe that, and I don't believe that's even close to even a fraction of the majority, are people that still buy into the idea that Democrats are this evil force trying to do this, and Republicans are the ones trying to save it. And the Democrats have the same broken view in reverse. The team sport players. It's just naive. When you can literally see they work together when it comes to all sorts of things. So the bottom line is that this is about creating the justification to rationalize whatever they push forward as that agenda next. Yeah, of course. And he says, pointing to the midterms, The State Department on Twitter pointed the blame squarely at the Spanish government. The Spanish government has been very supportive of Palestine, saying the incident was a direct result of its migration policies. Quote, "We are considering actions to defend Americans at home and abroad from this threat and stand ready to assist other European allies considering some..." Okay, so it's another European invasion, right? This is just this is what they have been doing. That doesn't make the concern any less. It's because here's the thing, guys. These are real people, and they're doing this. But what we have to understand is what's driving it, or rather, just question that. But it shouldn't be something you disregard as fake because it's happening, like the Venezuelan migration, or what they call it, the caravan, was very orchestrated, and we were proving it in real time. Rubio inviting, the whole thing, guys. The point was that it was still real people, and not all of them were monster manipulator, military age men. It's such a construct. So moving past this, Dan, that this is something that is not new. We've covered this a long time. Weaponized migration and experimentation. The idea is that this has been done. I mean, Syria, like anytime there's even an organic situation, it's typically somehow manipulated, at least in history that I've seen. In this case, any number of these. It's a way. I mean, there's been entire documents. There's been think tanks about how you can weaponize migration to manipulate outcomes. So why we wouldn't think about that today seems crazy. Here, Rania Kalik points to, this is Jorge Laborio pointing to a New York Times live action post simply saying, "We've now spoken to several Moroccans," and it's all circumstantial, right? They've spoken and they were laying it to you, but it's important to consider it, who say that they were encouraged to cross into Ceuta by the Moroccan authorities. So right there, the argument would be, why would Morocco do that? Maybe because they want their territory, or, who knows, right? But it says, Yusuf, 26, said that his group approached the border on Thursday. Moroccan police officers pointed them in the right direction. They just keep saying, go that way, as if it was coordinated. He ultimately swam across the maritime border, he said, encountering several dead bodies in the water. Why would anybody do that? Said he had heard about the influx to Spain yesterday on social media and that he had neared the border. Moroccan police officers said, come to Spain. We met Mr. Amido as he was returning back across the border to Morocco. There wasn't anything to eat or drink, any place to sleep, he said, so he was going home. Okay, so at the simplest level here, you can see that they're hiding it, and Morocco was making, you could see how that might happen in interest of the Moroccan government and what they believe they're owed, but I don't think that's what's happening. I believe what we're seeing is that there's influence on Morocco through obvious and undeniable connections to Israel that are driving this into reality. Now, this is why I included this, because what we're going to highlight is that during what you saw was Israel literally on the record stoking the flames of this genocide, talking to one of the sides saying, this is what we deal with too. You see what you're dealing with, that other group? That's what we deal with Palestinians. We're the same. Here, take some Uzis, take some machetes. It's all on the record, guys. And so think about that in this context today and whether that might be playing a factor. Here's Danny Danon, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, who you've seen sitting there telling you the lies, supporting genocide since October 7th. He says Spain, on the 30th, which never misses an opportunity to lecture Israel, has declared a state of emergency, which, I mean, even if they, let's just say you think they illegally occupy the territory, it makes sense that this causes the need for some kind of shutdown. That, it's no different than Trump shutting this down in regard to what he argues is invasion. But the simple point was declared emergency following the crisis over its immigration policy. So see, the frame is, oh, your policy, not that we orchestrated this invasion and that you reacted to it, but that you caused this. But so why would letting in immigrants in any context, in any amount, be the rationalizing justification for why a sudden surge came all at once, claiming they were, it just doesn't line up, guys. There's no logical connection. Unless you want to argue they all just were like, free immigration, we're all going to go at the same time because we're going to get in for free, which is not even what was happening. It's not even what they're arguing. But it says, maybe before it continues lecturing us, Danny continues, and see, this is the point. Lecturing them about colonial enclaves in Africa. Okay, fair. But you see what he's doing right there is not caring about colonial enclaves, but trying to justify why theirs is acceptable. That's all they're doing. So what you have to read in this is motive. That doesn't mean that they're responsible, but what you can see is that they may have, their motive was clear to rationalize this, to drive this, to say, see, we're not the only ones. And that's kind of how this works. And this is just about sentiment so far. So you have Ben-Gvir says, my congratulations to the president of the government of Spain, Pedro Sanchez, for his profound commitment to welcoming immigration and human diversity. As someone who demonstrates great concern for Hamas and the residents of Gaza, I call on you to translate words into actions. Open the doors of Spain and grant refuge to the residents of, oh, well, here's another motive. Who seek to immigrate. They do not, by the way. This is an excellent opportunity to contribute a little more to Spain's human diversity. So now use what they claim is their concern. Who knows if it's genuine, because I haven't seen much from anybody but Yemen, quite frankly, but to use that to justify, rationalize mass displacement of Palestinians into Spain. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to this, guys, but it seems pretty clear that at least it's being taken advantage of. Well, here's Dr. Simon pointing this out. Here's Benjamin Netanyahu's son back in 2019, literally calling for Muslims and Arabs to invade Spain. Here's the actual post. He says, dear Arabs and Muslims, you want free occupied, want to free occupied Arab Islamic lands? See, all they're doing is trying to go, you want Palestine? What about this one? Acting like it's unjustified. You don't care about that one. It's the same thing they do today. You didn't care when they were doing this. Well, we did actually. But see, they're trying to make you think the opposite. But he goes, here's a good start, and is literally showing the exact area we're talking about. Swita and now imagine how we feel when your government calls for Israel to give away what is actually the West Bank. He calls Judea and Samaria. See how crazy that is? So all you're really doing is dishonestly framing this as a justification for what you do, what your genocide is. Think about how crazy that is. But see, all it really showing you is the idea that they've been trying to drive this into reality. Down here, it simply says, let's make a deal. We won't fund NGOs in your country, calling you to give away, see, these areas, and you will stop funding NGOs doing that to us. It's clearly pointing out that they're funding NGOs, like a Soros kind of situation, to do this. But he could be joking, right? Certainly could be. Well, as, of course, Cernovich, who, by the way, is just an avid player in the false media, saying the Israelis are being stupid here. Optics make it look like they planned this. You and I get the joke, but never make propagandist against yourself. That's rule number one. We try to help them not lie. Cernovich wants you to think that they're trying to be funny. Don't do that. You'll make them think you were part of this. We perceive them to be involved in as opposed to actually doing, journalism. Not as if he ever has actually been a part of that. But Mel says they literally did plan this to include having their think tanks argue for why Morocco taking Ceuta wouldn't activate NATO. And I mean, you could easily look this up. Morocco should send a new Green March into those two territories. This is the Middle East Forum, which is not as well planned out. It's all been documented. It's all been game planned and what's the term? Not game plan, but war gamed. It says, don't fall for the fake Fox GOP outrage. 2 weeks ago, the House passed a bill that green lighted the transfer of Spanish territory to Morocco. Every Republican except me voted for it. But now they're acting shocked at the invasion. Now, another point too. Now, I didn't see this or talk about this before, but see, real journalism would be pointing this out before we're reactively pointing back to it. And I think that's important to think about because we do that sometimes when we have a story we're breaking down or before we're there. Plenty of people right now, right now, I think Drop Site's doing great when it comes to Gaza and plenty of things. And Iran, they're way ahead of some of these stories that nobody's talking about. My point, though, is that what we get is a lot of reactive coverage from these kind of Twitter commentary types that are just trying to kind of gaslight people along. That's how I see this. Now, I'm not relaying that as this post, but I would ask why he wasn't, maybe I missed it, but why wasn't this pointed out before? But here's the actual post. This is, two things. Here's the actual post. I have it highlighted. I'll come back to it. That's what Massey is highlighting, where it literally says that the U.S. government, including Marco Rubio as the State Department of State, believe that this is Moroccan territory. Even though they're trying to gaslight you, they don't think there is something that's being framed dishonestly and inaccurately as something today. Now, this is a post, 2025. Secretary Rubio's meeting with Moroccan Foreign Minister Bourita. And it says, the Secretary, Rubio, and Foreign Minister affirmed the strong U.S.-Morocco partnership in advancing peace and security. They discussed cooperation to advance shared priorities in the region, including the Abraham Accords. All that means is Israel normalizing with Morocco, or rather Morocco with Israel, ignoring their genocide and blindly and ignoring what their people want and normalizing with Israel. And that's why they have a relationship with Morocco and less so with Spain right now. That's the point. But it says the secretary reiterated President Trump's clear position that Hamas must release all the hostages 2025. And he commended Morocco's leadership in contributing to a better tomorrow for Israelis. That's literally what he said. The secretary, it says Palestinians and all the region people, but the point is obviously the only thing they're doing is in support of Israel. The secretary of the United States recognizes Moroccan sovereignty over the Western Sahara of the area we're talking about right now. That's not what's in discussion, but it does play a factor, seeing as how both that and this are in dispute to some degree, and both are Morocco aligning with Israel. That seems very relevant, and rather why so much the State Department plays a role in that. Now, things like this are going around. Breaking, U.S. joins Israel in recognizing Morocco post, cited from nothing. Which, again, was my point before. And Luke says the conspiracy's right. Great. Well, my point was, this happened in 2020, by the way. 2023 for Israel. And while relevant, is not the locations being discussed right now. But it got 11,000 likes and 400,000 views. And this is the game, guys. This is the kind of stuff that's getting, at least on this platform. The point is that in 2020 is when it actually happened. Proclamation on recognizing the sovereignty of the Kingdom of Morocco over the Western Sahara. Donald Trump. Or technically, what was that? So, either way, the bottom line is the U.S. government is really the point. It shouldn't even be about Trump or Biden. Supported this back in 2020. We also have Israel recognizing Moroccan sovereignty over the Western Sahara back in 2023. So I just think that's relevant, don't you? When this is what's being shared around and getting a lot of reach by even people you wouldn't expect. I mean, that from like others out there that are sharing that, it's strange, right? Either way, the point is, this is not exactly the focal point, but still relevant. And I'll include those two for you to check out. But here is what Massey was pointing to. I believe it's right down here. I have it highlighted too with the picture. And this is 2026 appropriations bill. And it says, Morocco. The committee continues assistance for Morocco in support of the United States national security interest and directs not less than $20 million under foreign military finance program, so $40 million. The committee notes the historic alliance between Morocco and American Treaty of Peace and Friendship, probably when they forced them to do that. You want my opinion? The committee notes that the Spanish-administered cities of Ceuta and Melilla are located in Moroccan territory and remembered by the Secretary of State, that's Rubio, to encourage diplomatic engagement between. So, and yet you're getting shouted down by people talking about the fact like this, as if this is reality and they're being gaslit. And then people look at that and go, oh, so they're lying about this. It's muddied. But nonetheless, the point is clearly the U.S. government supports the idea of Morocco taking back this territory. And James Lee posts another clip saying the migrant crisis in Europe is totally organic and definitely not manufactured by our greatest ally. Here's how you can tell.
Every day, thousands of refugees arrive on this shore. Waiting to help them on the beaches of Greece are the last people the Syrians might expect. Volunteers from Israel.
We see babies which are only a few days old people.
So, I mean, I'm hearing in the chat, the audio is broken up. The simple point was, as they're coming across the ocean, they're meeting the most unlikely people, Israelis. That's real. And so, and so that doesn't prove that it's all some orchestra, but how crazy that you can see all these different parts of it. And that even as they're coming to meet them on the other side, the Israelis are there to go, welcome, come in here. And then they're the same ones criticizing why that's happening. It feels very dishonest to me. Now, James also says, the White House put this out on 31st, clearly leaning into this, saying what's happening with Spain and tens of thousands of illegal immigrants invading it happened to the United States during sleepy Joe Biden administration, right? Did he just say that could, again, only worse if the Democrats ever again gain power? Logic to this. It's just that you do what we think we should do or everything goes bad. That's the policy. Vote for this or it goes bad. Or goes the other way. Whatever you don't like, that's what will happen. Just lazy. They don't even really try hard anymore. The truth is, guys, there's 1,000 of the things that are factoring into this, but they're going to use it. And he says, we are in the manufacturer and migrant crisis in Spain with the help of Israel phase of the PSYOP. Now, here's a clip he put out. Here's his breakdown of this. And I pretty much agree with a lot of what we already went over, but he'll break it down in a quick little breakdown.
Spanish officials now estimate that nearly 50,000 migrants crossed into the city of Ceuta from Morocco in the last 24 hours alone.
Okay, this has to be the most obvious and blatant CIA Mossad PSYOP of all time. First off, the area that we're talking about is actually a Spanish enclave on the continent of Africa, so quite easy, logistically speaking, to transport tens of thousands of people. Which, getting to the PSYOP part, Marco Rubio was literally talking about this a couple months ago, calling for Morocco to quote-unquote take back their land. And who else was talking about this? Israel, of course, because the current government of Spain is anti-Zionist, so they want to sow discord, they want to create chaos in Spain to try to overthrow their government. Netanyahu's son literally tweeted about this. Okay, there's absolutely nothing organic about this crisis. So why is it happening? A, because they want to punish Spain for being one of the first European nations to recognize the state of Palestine. Spanish fans were literally celebrating their World Cup win a couple weeks ago by waving the Palestinian flag. So Israel and America not happy about this. And B, despite Marco Rubio fomenting the initial invasion, the White House gets to now spin this as some sort of migrant crisis that is about to hit American shores because of Joe Biden and the Democrats, and also Marxism. This is a test for the American
I feel
public.
like for me, it just ended. I mean, for my own edification, tell me in the chat whether or not there was a big gap right there or not. I started talking the moment the clip ended for me, as far as I could tell. But somebody in the chat, let me know whether there was a gap. But I agree. I agree with what he's ultimately saying right there. And that there's no real way to not see that there's an agenda playing in all of this. Right? I mean, just really very obvious. So, I want to touch on some overlap with Gaza, and then we'll end with some points about Iran, so you get updated on what's currently happening. But I found this really interesting. Oh, it was still playing? Who knows? Now someone's telling me that it was still in the middle of playing. This is just not even feasible. Like there's there's no way that this can continue this way. That's not to say in any way, shape, or form that I'm going to stop. I just that this is the whole point. How is this possible? All right. How can it be this? It's just crazy. There's no, I've gone, it doesn't matter though. Back to the point. But, just the amount of, we need it, especially today. I'll talk about it at the end. Overlap with Israel and Gaza. I think there's a few points. Lebanon, Ukraine, with what we're seeing in the world right now, and the Morocco point being on the focus, we need to realize what they're capable of. And I know most of you here already know that. Donald Trump has now announced a complete disarmament of Hamas and all armed groups in Gaza. Now, first of all, what that opens the door to, by the way, is more execution of anybody, which, by the way, hasn't stopped at all. But there's a couple ways to look at this. And Daniel McAdam just says, literally, entire country sick of Trump's BS. Not a single word, he turns out, seems to be true. He's right. It's not about not liking Trump or not. If you look at his track record, I actually think it's unprecedented how brazenly, consistently dishonest he's been. Immediately clear. But aside from that the point is he's coming out going, we did it, board of peace, historic agreement. But what's interesting is then Israel continued to kill people in Gaza, including bombing Hamas. And so the whole point was that Hamas was saying, well, this might actually work, assuming Israel goes along with it. And then they bombed him yesterday and today. So I'm not sure how to read this. Is this Trump just flailing about trying to make it look like he's doing things? Or maybe he got played by Israel right there and he thought they were going to go. I really don't know. But as an American, which is what we're talking about here from an American perspective, this point I'm making, of course, there's plenty of people watch this show outside of the United States, but we're talking about the U.S. president, right? So he's telling you he solved the massive thing, just like he told you he solved the Middle East and solved Ukraine. By the way, it's still happening. So frankly, I think this is just a lazy continuation of I guess a 10-second, not even that, but a momentary win by, I guess, the small reaction of oh, peace, even though most of his own supporters are like, well, probably not. Let's wait and see what happens. So I'm not even sure, but here's how this goes. A massive peace deal has been made, right? White House today, the board of peace, which by the way is not a board of peace, which has been supporting actual genocide, supporting bombing civilian bridges and water infrastructure. That's of course two parties within it. But on top of that, the board of peace is talking about building on the ashes of a dying bomb genocide society. So it's not the board of peace. But on top of that you're discussing a historic agreement with a group that you told us were ongoing terrorists that want to kill your families, but lasting peace and security. And then, as James Lee points out, Israel has publicly said that they've yet to even approve that agreement. So is this Trump trying to spin away? I don't know is the real point. And I'll continue to say that, but I want you to think about this. What do you think this means? What does this say for Trump and Israel relationship? And is there something changing? Ultimately, Drop Site News points out that the next day, or even the day on the 31st, they bombed Israel. Authorities marked the new Trump Board of Peace agreement with massive airstrikes targeting residential areas in Gaza in the middle of the night. And then today, same thing. Israel strikes two, kills two in Gaza, destroying the Reuters. They just bombed a bunch of medicine. Strikes, you mean war crimes? The Israeli military said it struck a Hamas hideout. So my point is that they are knowingly bombing Hamas, even though Trump says we're in agreement and this will all work out. And 2 days in a row, they literally bomb exactly where Trump says they won't. Take that for what you will. I think Trump is the deal with last time the Israelis and Lebanese government has spoken in official level in 30 years. You're talking to people like that. And that's why the last time they made a deal with Lebanon that wasn't with Hezbollah, that they made a deal with Lebanese government that they would get them to stop bombing. And then it continued because why? Hezbollah is the group that Israel wants to stop. They've already manipulated the government long ago. So are they doing this now? Because they're flailing. How else do you explain this? To just yell out another fake meeting or another fake deal that won't go anywhere? They're literally in the right now you can show the Israeli government, Katz and the rest, bragging about how they're just going home to home to home in Lebanon, robbing and destroying. And that's how you get them. You kill their families, like saying things exactly like that. I've shown them to you. And this just will make you laugh about the insane, the partisan media. You'll know exactly what I mean by the way he sets this up. Just all the lies Trump spins about what's actually happening, just lays it out for him. And he goes, tell us about Iran, Trump. But he talks about Ukraine. And guess what? Ukraine, they take whatever they want. And he'll openly say that, just like they're stealing oil from Venezuela. None of that's helping the people of Venezuela. None of this is helping people in Ukraine, both of which he pretends he ended, even though it's continuing to be suffering from both places. And I think what it shows you is this is the future for anybody that makes a deal with this kind of an authoritarian, corrupt situation. That's Biden, that's Trump, that's any of them.
And I would be remiss if I didn't ask where we stand today with Iran. We've been hitting them very hard. You have over the past 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. They make a deal, they renege. They make a deal, they don't honor it.
Right.
For 47 years.
Well, that's exactly where we are.
47 years.
We hit them very hard.
I mean, just think about setting it up like that. I'm just going to lay out all the lies you like to hear, Trump. I'm just going to stroke your ego. You got him, Trump, and in 47 years, and it's all a nuclear bomb, and go ahead. Welcome to the interview. It's like, this isn't journalism. This is, we'll pat Trump on the head, and he'll pretend like we're the journalists in the room. That's what you get. Every single thing he just laid out, you can easily prove isn't true, including 47 years of, again, I already made this point. They're pretending that it didn't start in 53 when they illegally overthrew the government, not in 79 when the Iranians took it back. So even if you want to make the argument that they've been at war for 47, then all you're doing is admitting that it actually started when you invaded and overthrew the country. But you don't say that because you're dishonest and you damn well know. But here's what he says about Ukraine.
They ask us not to do it, and they want to negotiate. We start negotiating. In the midst of a negotiation, they fire 5 rockets.
Easily false. Very easily false. I mean, I can literally tell you this is where it's going to go. So it's not a surprise when they respond to something Trump did and he turns around and goes, they did it without telling us. We were in the middle of a meeting. Nope. He's lying. And anybody with 2 brain cells has already proven that. But I don't even know what group is out there repeating what Trump has to say. I mean, what's funny is even the so-called adversarial media half the time repeats what he puts out there, even though it's embarrassingly obvious that that's not what's happening. Who knows why?
We knock all of them down, and then we beat the hell out of them like last night. We beat the hell out of them. And we're not stopping either. So, no, we have a great military, amazing military. I built it. I built the military in my first term. Cool. Now, Biden gave away a lot of military.
Do you realize how it was late? I mean, it's like dealing with a 6-year-old. Like, so you can't take one sentence without going, I'm great and Biden sucks. Every single opportunity, and not even every opportunity. Even times where it makes no sense. He just, and I'm the best, and my shoes are cool, and Biden's ugly. Move forward. It's like just embarrassing, like the kind of low-brow, childish kind of stuff. Why was that even necessary? You know what I mean? Like, it's just because you're taking an opportunity to build yourself up because Biden bad. He's failing. He knows he's failing. He knows people see through him. So you act like a child that does. That's what you do. He's bad. Look at what he's shirt. So, it's like, what I'm trying to relay is like elementary school. The kind of reactionary, petty kind of thing you get when a child is caught doing something they shouldn't be doing. That's what Trump does every single day. And it's embarrassing that we can't be honest about that.
A lot of it. He gave away a lot. $300 billion. Can you believe it? And Europe would have paid for it. All you had to do is ask. Now they pay. We give them things and they pay. They didn't pay under Biden. But if you remember, I made a deal. In theory, we get back our money because we made a deal for rare earth, and we made a deal to go in, and we have the deal. You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
It might be worth much more than $300 billion, but we can go, and Ukraine is very rich, very fertile soil in terms of rare earth, and we have a contract signed having to do with rare earth. We can go in.
You know what's funny? Rich, fertile soil. Man, he does. I don't even think he understands what rare earth minerals are. The guy is just so. This is what Trump has been his whole life. He is literally the living example of fake it until you almost make. Well, I shouldn't even say it like that. Like right now, it's what it feels like. The guy has clearly had success in his life. Like, it's obvious. But it's also because of billions in support and influence, not earned, but given. My point, though, is that right now it's like fake it until you kind of flail and fall down and say you made it. It's like, but my point would be that that's what he's an embodiment of. But overall, the point is that we're talking about taking what you want from Ukraine. How is that? Is that what Ukrainians want? Is that benefiting Ukraine? No, all you're brazenly doing is going, we gained from them. We made a deal that benefits us and hurts them. And that's what a businessman thinks makes sense. That's not what this is supposed to be like. You're abusing your power at the expense, at this point, of Americans too. But realize that what you're saying is not, let's put it this way. If you were saying, I'm going to go to Ukraine and take what I want, if people supported that, that's one thing. But you're going, we're going to rescue them for freedom and liberty. And they're, all the big promises. And all you do is then just admit that you're robbing them. So it's like, well, then why make all the grandiose arguments about liberty and freedom and fighting the bad guys when all you're doing is just stealing and siphoning off oil? And it's insulting. And it shows you what they really are. Not just Trump, but all of them. It's because it's no different. Same thing they were doing at the same time. And I included this for the same point from Venezuela. As you've seen, he's bragging about how much oil they can take, and that's not a cent going back to help Venezuela. Mike Young points out on July 13th from an Atlantic article, a survey of CIA analysts reveals concern that political pressure is undermining intelligence work during Trump's administration. 2 career intelligence officers got fired for refusing to say Venezuela was directing a gang that it wasn't directing. And if we really have to debate that at this point, guys, we're talking to people that either have no clue, it doesn't even matter. They're wrong. And there are people that are making up stories about a scattered grouping of people that they claim is some kind of organized invasion. As I said right then, certainly possible. And I would never deny that kind of thing, but the evidence is not there. And that's why they lied and said at one point it was Biden, at one point it was Venezuela, at one point MS-13, now it's trending around. All about trying to fit in their narrative and trying to argue why what this was some kind of invasion to justify martial law and the whole thing. And this is the guy fighting away an authoritarian structure. Everyone's beyond that at this point. But here we have to look back. They lied to you about the whole thing to take things from Venezuela. They told you lithium, rare earth minerals, oil, gold, and all they did was just pretend that the bottom line is, not to get into the Venezuela conversation, that they lied to you about this to steal from a foreign country. Is that what you want? You praise that? Is that American values? Well, maybe you think so. I argue that's not what most people in this country believe in. Here's another clip from James talking about fake media. Not a new thing. But in this case, especially with conversations like Brad Pascal and the idea of the obvious Israeli, on the record Israeli agent under Farah working alongside Trump elements and literally funding propaganda through Israel into American minds. That's him right there. It's not even secret. And I don't know why this is even hard for some people to grasp, but I'm of the mind that most people are long past this. But for those that still don't see it,
trained directly to lie to you. Take a look. Drop site news, bombshell reporting. Israel is paying millions of dollars to train AI chatbots how to talk about Gaza. It's working. Former Trump campaign manager Brad Pascal is overseeing an operation posting hundreds of blog posts on behalf of Israel with the goal of infiltrating artificial intelligence. So, following orders, Clock Tower X has indeed created a bunch of fake but official-looking blogs and fact-checking websites AI chatbots.
Instead of trying to control the whole world, and in this big blob of Wikipedia and social media, we can go directly to the companies with clear technical and advocacy solutions. For the first time, There's a
Well, I don't know. I can't see if it's playing or not, so I'm going to move on. Yeah, I mean, that's what people are saying. Videos are useless today. What a waste. I really wish, guys, try to tell me that before it's played all the way through. If you guys aren't hearing it and it's not playing, tell me. I'll stop it. Because all this does is make it near impossible for people to watch this again after the fact, like on the replay, which is where most people end up seeing these, which is entirely the point, isn't it, guys? That none of this relays to a digestible thing going forward because of the kind of suppression that we deal with. Now, on top of that, the infiltration of this using, and there's two parts of that. It's not just the media manipulation. It's about training AI models to lie to you about the things they want you to lie about for Zionism. Musafir, Hamas handed Israel 66 boxes, each one containing the skull of a hostage. They then returned the bodies of female hostages cut open with their organs removed. Oh, wait, sorry, that was actually the IDF, not Hamas. Let me know if you still feel as sick and enraged as you did 10 seconds ago. Very well done, because that's exactly the case. CBC News, not that that makes it real, but it's not some fringe thing. It's a Canadian media, mainstream. And the point is that Israel does this all the time. But it's weird how you frame it as Hamas to Israel. It's something like a crazy, disgusting terrorism story. Oh, wait, but now Israel does it. It's framed as returning. They literally sent back the remains, organs missing, manipulated bodies. But you won't hear about that because nobody in the Western media cares about Israel doing things that it always does. Dropside news. Donald Trump clarifies. The Secretary of State Marco Rubio's campaign to bring International Criminal Court to heel is indeed to protect Israeli Minister Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The International Criminal Court, he says, quote, has made themselves illegitimate because they claim that even if you're not a member of that court, we can come after you. That's not at all what they claim, in fact. And he knows that. So he's lying on top of it, which is not new. But for those that are wondering whether he's being honest, he knows he's lying right there. And they're very arrogant, so they've begun their effort to really bring them into heel. That's what he says. So if you know, and of course it says he's trying to defend Bibi and his various other people, Trump said that. Because Trump does that. He interjects with the thing you're not supposed to say. It's all about Israel. The bottom line, what they say is that Palestine, which exists, is a member. And therefore, your genocide in Palestine is our purview. So they know that. But you see, they can't say that because then that makes it clear that Palestine is something they're genociding. These are monsters. These people know they're being dishonest. And the worst part about it is they know you see through them. That's what's so hard to think about. When we get into the Iran part right now, it's so hard to think about them knowing that they're lying to you. Them knowing they're making it. Here, let's just get right into it. So they lied here. Or rather, they lied all the time, but they're pretending they're doing this for other reasons. They're attacking the International Criminal Court to stop Israel from being held accountable. But this is such a ridiculous thing to say. This is what Donald Trump just said. I mean, for those of you that already know this roundabout ridiculousness from what we've already gone through since February 28th, it's just laughable, guys. And this is why I don't think anybody takes him seriously anymore. This is what he just said.
Different group than we're dealing with. They've already apologized, but we got to smack.
Okay, well, damn it. Well, it's not playing for me, so let's go back to the content here. So what he was saying right there, had you been able to hear the video, I can't tell. He says it was a different group than the one we were dealing with. Right? So it wasn't, we weren't, the one that was yelling and bombing us wasn't the other one. It was a different group. And well, they've already apologized, but we had to bomb them a bit anyway. I mean, guys, it's verifiably not true. I said, this is so laughably ridiculous. Literally no one believes this, in my opinion anyway. And I think the evidence shows that, but it's still my opinion. Some are lying alongside him for varying reasons, sure, but no one actually believes this lazy deception. It is still Khomeini. I mean, even he just said that in his last, I think it was the correspondence dinner, talking about the gay leader, and that's Khomeini. So now you're going to pretend that that's not the one in charge. It was a different group. What group? Remember how we tried to tell you there were different layers and different groups they were speaking to, and this one sent us ships, and none of that was true. I just don't understand that. I mean, outside of an absolute desperation where you don't have any other option but to lie and hope that we take it, I don't know how to explain this. He's making it up. So they've been trying to make deals with Iran. Iran has been upholding their side of it. They know they don't want that outcome, so they try to lie about it. It's simple as that. So they try to gaslight their way out of it. And they just, what keeps happening is that they've overcommitted. They don't want to look like they lost. So they just keep trying to maneuver this to where Iran eventually ends up in a place where they have more leverage, where they can pretend they won. And you know what happens in the meantime? Your tax dollars. Okay. So I'm not sure what's happening right now. I'm being texted. Can you guys see me? Hope so. I'll wait. No, it looks like I'm frozen. Wow, man. This is just something else. Yeah, I can even see the stream on that one. I mean, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do with this? Seriously. Like, ask yourself that. What do you do in this circumstance? I mean, we are literally in a time where this is just, my God. This is just the most ridiculous thing I've ever had to deal with in my life. I mean, it's just, there's nothing, you know, and I can check my speed. It's just like, there's no explanation for me to be this consistently manipulated through this platform or whatever else it is, or this computer. But at least you can still hear me, I guess. Can you see the screen when I bring it up? Can you see that? Sorry for the podcast who has to suffer through this absolute ridiculous thing. I mean, it's what we deal with. Okay, we can see that. So the bottom line. All right, we'll just hold off on the text for now. So the bottom line, guys, is Donald Trump wants you to believe that he's somehow dealing with a different group that made a mistake and is like, I'm sorry, we already made a mistake. We didn't mean to do that. And so it makes him feel like he's somehow in charge. As simple as that. He's not. Trump says, we're going to beat the F and SHIT out of them. After all this time? I mean, I almost don't even feel like we need to go through this. Like the insanity of pretending like you're in control. Well, every single opportunity, it's demonstrated that you're not. That you can yell and you can pound your chest and you can bomb things, but you're not in control. How does anybody even pretend like that clown on, what was it, Real America News or One America News? Oh, you really beat him, Trump, and there's 47 years and you're so strong. Okay, then explain to me why this is still happening. Why are they not controlling this trade? Why are there non-existent navies still stopping them? Why are there non-existent ships still bombing them? It's pretty dumb, isn't it? Here he is. We're in there for 5 months, and you look like, he says, and if you look at Vietnam, they were in there for 20 years. I mean, this is the kind of thing that makes you laugh. So it's a war you said you wouldn't do, that said only Kamala will bring, and now once you're in it and you know it's unpopular, you go, but it wasn't as long as theirs. He's a kindergartner, guys. This is a first grader. That one, he did it worse than me. He's the one that started it. I don't even understand why that's not something that he gets laughed out of town about. So you're basically framing another unjust, illegal, complete catastrophe war and saying, but that one lasted longer than mine. Like that's desperation. I don't even think we need to debate it. Dave DeCam says, I got to say, it's looking like things are really starting to explode in the Mideast due to Trump's war. U.S.-Saudi strikes on Iraq, as we told you last time, that they are beginning to, you have the responses coming in regard to what happened with Yemen and Saudi Arabia. You have Saudi Arabia in regard to Iraq and the stance in support of the Iranian side. Escalations between Saudi Arabia and Yemen, as I just said, indications that Israel will again escalate in Lebanon, which I don't think even stopped. The U.S. will likely bomb Iran again. And his point is that any one of these things are all together, as this framing makes clear, could easily spin out. And so Mencho says the same thing. Let's check on the schedule. Yemen will respond to Saudi violations. Now, this is on the 29th, which as last I checked, there's been some responses. Aramco, for example, but it hasn't been, it feels like right now there's some kind of a lull. U.S. will respond to Iran strikes on Jordan. Resistance movements likely to respond to Saudi Arabia. Unless a deal comes, this seems to easily be able to spin out. Now, there's reports coming out that Trump is frustrated. Surprise, surprise. Of course, they deny it. Exasperated Trump battles with White House officials over Iran strategy, saying that he's yelling and cursing at people in the inner circle about why they don't have a plan. Loud lack of consensus on strategy. There was not a real strategy for how long or what they should do to get to the end point. He did not intend for it to be this long, drawn-out war. Maybe because Israel, and he's stupid enough to go along with what Netanyahu told him, pretended it would end. I mean, I think I'm dead on with the way I've been framing this. The idea that he came and said, don't, Trump, you do this, you'll be remembered forever. He stoked his ego. He said they'll shut the strait down. The whole world will be on your side. They didn't, because they're not stupid. And they let Trump and Israel tumble right into this. And Israel, by the way, I mean, aside from the continually failing agenda at large, has arguably benefited from this, at least in regard to what they want to happen to Iran. So if October 7th wasn't part of this, I bet you Israel would have nothing but benefit from what's happening right now. That's the way to look at it. But overall, they're clearly floundering too in general. But what I'm saying is that they've gotten the U.S. to fight their war in Iran, like we always told you was going to happen. Think about that. And so now, when he came and said, do it, it'll be win, you'll be forever a hero, we'll tell you end the nuclear program, and now Israel stands back and goes, hey, it's not our war, like we told you. And he says, after all this time, there's no unity. We have had a series of tactical victories, but we're facing strategic defeat. So they know they're being defeated, but they also haven't got tactical victories. They've had some bombings, sure. I guess you can call it victories if you want to claim you hit things. I guess minor, I mean, they successfully hit them, but is it a victory? Usually a victory to me amounts to a battle. A war, you can win, but you have victories in the battles, but I have not seen them gain or come out ahead in any one of these engagements. You tell me where I'm missing that. The bottom line, though, is simply that he's angry. Leavitt says, that's not what happened. Everybody loves him, and Iran's the one violating everything. It's all they got. It's not true. Here's what, I mean, I'm just going to read it so we can just wrap this up, and hopefully we can figure out what's going wrong by the next show. My plan is tomorrow, but I'm going to go ahead and put a caveat on that, assuming I can even get this to work. But we'll see. President Trump says, I'm losing faith in Iran because they lie. That's what he said. You can quite literally prove that what Iran has said publicly near consistently has been accurate to this point. Not because you trust them in the moment, but because you can look back and prove it to yourself. The ships, he lied. The strait, they're in control of. The lies if they warn the ships going the wrong route. You can see Trump sign the MOU. Like, guys, you can prove all this stuff. And yet he desperately needs you to believe otherwise. And he says, we were in the middle of a negotiation. I was waiting for Steve Witkoff to call, and they launched 5 missiles on our base in Jordan. Not at all what actually happened. Ron lies. Also, why doesn't anyone ask why a real estate agent is negotiating with PhDs? Good question. Of course, I said that quickly. DD Geopolitics is saying Ron lies and question marks. The point, guys, is if you want to look at how this went down, the reality of what they did was an act because of where they drove this. There is no memorandum because of what Trump and Israel did. And they gave them a long leash to get that figured out. And they didn't, because they never really wanted to. And Iran knew that. They were letting them hang themselves with that leash. That's what they did. My point is that clearly Iran is well beyond any idea that they're in some kind of negotiation. They gave them like 15 different opportunities. And they murdered Soleimani, or rather Khomeini. Soleimani before that, but they tried to assassinate their next. They tried to bomb the plane when they came to whatever that was last one. I forget. But they've been trying to kill them every step of the way. They've lied. They said, here, let's make a deal. Well, you can control the strait. Then they force ships to go the wrong way, and they pretend they bomb them. And the point is now Iran is well beyond the illusion that they're in some kind of negotiation. So they're at war because Trump did that. So for them to pretend like that's Iran violating the agreement is so obscene. It's not true. And that's in no way to suggest Iran's not capable of that. I know they are. Just not what happened. Glenn says the entire U.S. national security world is entering a panic state as they all realize severe shortages of anti-missile defense systems, and even some offensive weapons pose major limits on U.S. warfighting, including on Iran. Now, that's one statement, by the way, that people are trying to secondarily say, well, that's a scam. It's certainly possible, right? That's Trump feigning that they're out to lull Iran into weakness. Now, that certainly could be. Frankly, I just don't think they're even right now, I don't think that they're there. I think that they are spinning out. I think that this is what's actually happening. I think that they're short because they didn't expect this, and the play is to make them think that's a play. Just my opinion. But it certainly could be that it's some kind of long play, but I don't think so far they've shown that they're not that good at this. But it says, meanwhile, as the U.S. national security world is panicked because of shortage, here's what the Pentagon is focused on. that he lacks the sufficient naval forces to continue protecting Israel. That's literally what they said, the Pentagon. Will be forced to choose to defense of the United States homeland over that of Israel. Well, you'd think that would be an easy choice, but guess what? You'd be wrong in the minds of Zionists in this country. Now, Alan Ear lays out some points that I think are worth considering. He says, here are my current Iran war operating assumptions. What have I got wrong? What am I missing? Frankly, I think he nailed this. The U.S. initiated this illegal war, immoral and unwise war, in the hopes of a quick win, and after that became unobtainable, has been strategically flailing. And he's putting this as positive. Like, what do you think? I think that's accurate. Number two, the main U.S. goal now is to reopen the Strait of Hormuz to relieve global economic pressure, even though it was open to begin with. And they claimed it was about stopping Iran and nuclear programs. Well, now their only goal is to get back to where they started. Pretty clear. Number three, U.S. military force is insufficient to open and keep open the strait now that they've pushed themselves into this position. I think that's very clearly demonstrated. Iran sees control of the strait as integral to its national security. Well, just like the U.S. sees in their Gulf, and it's the same thing. It's actually wild to frame it as anything but what any other country would do. Military force cannot change Iranian red lines, since Iran believes capitulation on key issues will increase, not decrease, pressure on it. So that's demonstrated, meaning Iran already knows that even if they agree to everything the U.S. wants, it's only going to make them more vulnerable. History has demonstrated that. So why would they play into whatever they're doing? Simple, right? So they go, yes, we agree, and they bomb them, right? Lull them into a sense of vulnerability and then invade them. Like, that's what this group does all throughout my time doing this. And it says, and will increase, not decrease pressure on it, and decrease regime viability. Hence, it is unlike Khomeini accepting the 1998 ceasefire, because the circumstances are different. The Iranian regime doesn't trust the U.S. administration to fulfill any commitments it makes. Clear, historically accurate. So unless the U.S. is prepared to collapse the regime into failed state status, which one would expect the Iranian regime to react to, future use of U.S. military force is probably counterproductive. Number 7, ongoing increased U.S. military force will likely cause Iranian retaliation, escalation, which is what they're telling us, to include against GCC infrastructure, which is already happening. So my point would be that they know that every time they push, Iran pushes back harder. You know, what Trump and Hegseth feign, what they pretend they're doing, and they're not. Every time there's an engagement, Iran seems to show us that they have something they haven't shown us yet. It continues to demonstrate that they're not the weak one taking hits, but the opposite. And again, guys, this is not my opinion. This is very clearly demonstrated about what's going on right now. Number 8, the U.S. administration is either unwilling or unable to engage in a serious, sustained diplomacy needed to solve the issue, much less a nuclear one. Same as the other point. They know they have no real intention of making an agreement because all that's going to be is amounting to what Trump accused Obama of doing. They're telling us these are monster terrorist maniacs, but you're going to make a deal? Like, those never on the table for them, guys, because their entire sentiment is that these people shouldn't exist. Now, it says significant easing of U.S. economic pressure on Iran, easing of sanctions on blocking Iranian assets is unlikely for domestic political reasons, meaning they can't even capitulate to things like that, even though they know that would actually help, because they're, I argue, petty and don't even have any interest in giving in all, because I think Israel's dictating these. Number 10, the best chance for a least bad resolution on the Strait of Hormuz problem are ongoing negotiations, not between the U.S. and Israel and the United and Iran, but between Iran and Oman on in regard to their control over the strait, with Oman consulting with other GCC countries. In this scenario, the U.S. then would have to, 1, forego attacks, which they don't think they're going to do because Israel doesn't want that to happen, while maintaining a blockade, which they're doing anyway. 2, approve whatever final settlement the two sides reach. I doubt they'll do that. So all he's highlighting is that they really wanted this to end. They could in many ways, but this is the way Iran could get some kind of traction going, but the U.S. could still stay and go, we don't agree with that, even though it's basically what they already signed on the memorandum, which shows you they never had any intention of actually following through with that. But it goes 11, short-term Iranian control of the strait is decidedly suboptimal, but probably unavoidable. I don't see why that's even the sentiment. What has Iran done to demonstrate any way they're going to do anything dishonest? That's not to say they won't. For all we know, they're going to shut their fist, slam their fist down and say, we now control this and we're no one else. Wouldn't surprise me. They are a government, and if it's in their interest, I believe they would do that. The point, though, is that so far it's been clear it's in their interest to not play the role that the U.S. accuses them of, and to demonstrate that that's not who they are, even if that's not true. So my point is that clearly I think Iran is going to step into this and is going to gain wildly from playing an active role in the system. I mean, that just seems very basic. The only argument against that is they're maniacs that kill children and want to shrink your blood or whatever the thing is, whatever the new hype is about whatever they're aiming at that day. That's how that works. U.S. claims about the importance of preserving freedom of navigation in the Strait is risible. The Trump administration believes in power, not international law, or directly from the mouth of Stephen Miller. Quote, we live in a world in which we can talk all we want about international niceties and everything else, but we live in a world, in a real world, Jake, that is governed by strength. That is governed by force. That is governed by power. These are the iron laws of the world that have existed since the beginning of time. Now, he's not necessarily wrong, but the whole point is that we have risen to a place to where we can create something better than just power and control and give and take. But they want that back, right? These people are desperate for that power, and they want to make sure they, I mean, that's how, I mean, in my mind of the way I see Miller. But either way, guys, is this what you want? Do you want a world in which power rules all? Might makes right, as the Trump administration? I don't think anybody really wants that. Even the people that project they want that, when it's turned on them, really don't want that. Seems kind of sad, doesn't it? Also, just to finish with this is a post carried over from Truth Social. Trump says, no more fake agreements. Oh, that's pretty clear. So, I mean, of course, you could argue he means from them, but I think he knows they're not lying. So either way, he says, no more fake agreements. Take the oil, finish it. I think that's just the mask off. Take the oil. So it's pretty damn clear, guys. They're just frustrated. And I guess that means he thinks he can actually just go in and do that. I don't think he can. I don't think they're capable of that right now. I think even on a full invasion that they would fail based on any number of metrics. It's not an unpopular opinion, but who knows? Because there's plenty of other things they could do that would take this to a scary level. And I'm talking about the obvious, but we'll see. Now, last, and I'm going to go into this more tomorrow. I think there's just, I don't want this to be, I want to actually talk about this more, but just to briefly point this out. Of course, Alex Jones is calling for Trump's removal, even though, it's the impeachment of Trump. It's a funny thing. What an arc for him to pull his hair out about the impeachment of Trump and now him to be calling for Trump's impeachment. Just such a cycle of stupidity. But the bottom line is because he claims Trump is going to initiate the draft. While that's obviously possible, this is classic Alex Jones. World War III, the draft, this is what he's done his entire career. Now, obviously, this is possible. If it was ever going to be more possible, it seems like right now would make sense. And this is why he's jumping, I guess that's the term, just jumping ahead to get to this story because this is where it seems to be going. This is calculation, in my opinion. If you want the basic story, which we'll go into more, I guess if it becomes more necessary, the bottom line is they've initiated one thing. So the select service system, which is where you're required as an American to sign up. You can choose to do it or not. It's up to you. They could charge you with a crime if you don't. The point is that you're legally required to sign up. So then your name is in the select service for draft or other things they use it for, but it's largely draft. So what they did is, I guess two things. They changed this, I guess, from now forward to be that you're automatically signed up. That's the real point right there, which in a material sense doesn't really change anything other than your ability to choose to, what in their eyes, break the law by not signing up when you're 18, which the vast majority of people do. So that's the first point. So that is a very dishonest way to frame that the draft is coming when all they really did was just expedite forcing you onto the list that you were already legally required to be on. But I'm not denying the fact that I see that they're capable of that and that this may be a step to that. As usual, what you get from them is, all this big hype about the draft and the plans and the war games and it's all coming and that's what you get. And 9 times out of 10, in my experience, these people are wrong. But the second part of this is the war game, which we can talk about more, which if you read into it, though, is a war game about the process. It's a war game about how this would go forward and what, hypothetically of a draft. And you could argue that is very clearly the setup for what they do, like any kind of pandemic type of thing. But that's not always how those go. They don't always amount to exactly what will happen. A lot of times it's about getting a certain sentiment out there. So what I want to highlight, The idea, what I see from the people that are really pushing this, it feels very dishonest to me, even if it's possible, to get you feeling like this is all building in this direction, when I think more than anything, it's about trying to feign that to Iran. So, think about if you're Trump and you are desperately spinning out in this and you know you don't have what you need to do this, but all you have is propaganda and narratives and pressure, right? And so if you could convince Iran that you're really genuinely going to do an entire draft and knowing that will be catastrophic for everybody, even if Iran wins, as it were, at the end, that would be catastrophic for everybody. And that if you can successfully feign that you are capable of doing that, that maybe it'll drive Iran to make some concessions. That's one way to look at that. But either way, I don't know where this goes. And that's the honest way to frame that. It is the U.S. government having a small change rather than just automatically putting you on a list they already demanded you be a part of legally, and then wargaming out how that would go in the future. That's it. And we can read through it, and it's simply the readiness simulation project comes as the U.S. government's about to change its draft registration system. That's it. And it says the computer simulation will explore multiple areas, including evaluating staff in regard to the system, resource requirements for the system, comparing mobilization and police scenarios, and assessing the operational impact of surge conditions. Now, that does end up being in regard to the actual use. In addition, the system will identify throughput risks, delays, and bottlenecks. So you could argue this means that you're about to have a draft, or you could argue it's just about some procedural process and going through, who knows, guys? Or it's about making people think that's going to happen for any number of reasons. But I really think it's wildly dishonest to jump ahead to argue that we know that this is all coming. Because as usual, from the Alex Jones of the world, what you're getting is an inside secret source that says that we know this is coming. And how many times I showed you that person saying that they had big news about Obama going to jail that didn't actually happen? You can decide for yourself. I just want you to be skeptical, because I believe there's a lot of cross narratives and propaganda going on that are designed to keep you confused and looking in the wrong direction and relying on people that don't have your interests in heart. We will go over this more. Oh, and this is just a clip that was the same thing. Alex Jones calling on Trump to be removed from office for being mentally unfit. How funny that is. And David Icke said, between the lines, like framing what Alex Jones really means. I want to be 100% clear in front of God that I am not with the demon-possessed man that I told everyone to vote for as the savior of America from the globalists and started every show with a countdown to Trump golden age. He did. I say this in a desperate effort to protect my long-lost credibility, along with all the other influencers like Carlson, Rogan, Owens, Carol, Brand, etc., who fell for the same transparent bollocks that Alex did. Thank you for your attention to this matter. He's right. I think that's very clear. And they're out there right now trying to gaslight you into thinking that it's all coming down, and I'll end with that in general. Like, let's just say that literally ends up happening. At the end of the day, it was not, I argue that what's important to all of us is to be, what is interesting matters, right? What catches your attention matters. Follow what your gut tells you, but it has to end up with facts, with source material, with due diligence, with questioning what you're being given. Because, guys, these people are constantly flooding this field with just endless streams of nonsense that really that even waste all the rest of our time trying to break down some of these conversation points. Looks like we froze again, so I guess we'll leave it there for today. Thank you for tuning in. Apologize for people that had to suffer through all the weirdness of this platform. My plan is to do a show tomorrow, but this doesn't feel very tenable right now. So I'll be chiming in on Telegram and Twitter, and I'm going to see. I have some things I'm going to be trying to see if I can figure this out. But I'll tell you right now, guys, if there's ever been a time to support this platform, what we're dealing with right now is beyond the pale. I'm telling you. And in general right now, like, I mean, even, I hate to even, you have those like different platforms that have like their monthly tally. Here's what we need to maintain what we're doing for the month. I hate stuff like that, even though I don't begrudge them that. I think it's a good idea, but I don't like it to feel like we need to meet some kind of an endpoint. But that's where we are right now. Like literally right now, like we're at a point where we need to continue to make up enough to continue where we're going. So if there's ever been a time where you're out there and you have never donated or you want to support this platform, we need you. We need you right now. So all the different ways you can support this platform, all the donation, the donation portal on the website. You have our Buy Me a Coffee, Subscribe Star, all these different things. Mail it directly with our address, which is on the website and everywhere else. The point is that we truly need your support. If you find valuable what we're doing, show us what it's worth to you, because I'm going to keep fighting as best I can. But the more resources you give us, the better we can. I love you all. As always, question everything. Come to your own conclusions. Stay vigilant.